Hello, hello. Welcome on in, folks. Good to see you all. And there's a lot of people here, it turns out. What's up? Hello, Sam. Universe of Music, welcome in. First time chatter, good to see you. Celestix, Appos, Dogman Jack, Medieval Knievel, hello. Flying Pingy, hello to you. Pam Bunny, good to see you. Alright. We're in. Honestly, like, my hair is getting so long right now, it starts to look really good when I put it, like, over in the other direction, but it never stays there. I have, like, terminally flat hair. But, it's always that way with hair, right? You always want what you don't have. You always, like, everyone with curly hair wants straight hair, everyone with straight hair wants some volume. That kind of stuff. How's everyone doing? Alan Starkeeper, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Wow, okay, the subs and stuff are rolling in right now. It's Super Soapy Bubbles with a brand new Tier 1 as well. Thank you both for your support. Enjoy your emotes and your sub badges. Welcome to the Pixels. Amazing Cincy with the 4 months. Thank you for the 4 months of Prime. Spider Farm video helped a lot. Awesome. Glad to hear it. Well, glad to hear it. Spider Farms are, you know, sometimes worth making. I really want to find a double spawner that isn't cave spiders one of these days, but, you know, we'll have to do a bit more exploring in the world for that. I think we might do more of that on, I want to say Thursday or maybe Sunday this week. Actually, Sunday's going to be D&D, so maybe we won't get to that. But, yeah, I want to do some more exploring. I want to see if we can just, like, grind through caves to try and find spawners, like a couple of spawners in close proximity, ideally skeletons, stuff like that. All us baldies just want hair. Fair enough, fair enough. Sam, thank you so much for the 16 months. Nixcraft for the 200 bits. What are we chopping today? Mostly wood, actually. I need a bunch more wood for my storage system still. I still haven't finished decorating that. Like, I do that thing where I start a project and then I'm like, oh, going to the end sounds like a good idea. So I haven't quite finished making the storage system, but I also need a bunch of wood just for stockpiling for projects and things. Currently trying to find a nether fortress. Good luck. Ride a strider if you haven't already. Honestly, it's one of the better ways of finding nether fortresses now. You found 4 spawners in close proximity near your base. Very cool. Very cool. How big of a base am I making in the Lush cave? It's a dripstone cave I'm planning on building in, and who knows? The Lush caves that I found haven't quite fit what I want from a Lush cave base, at least not for now. But we can keep looking and we might find something cool. Have I ever done a creeper farm? Yes. On the previous survival guide, we'll do one in this series at some point. We are going to need a lot of gunpowder now that we have Elytra, but I'm not using the Elytra much yet. I wanted to introduce it and then say, this is an option, we're not going to rely too heavily on it. Especially right now when a lot of the work we're doing is underground and you don't really need the Elytra for underground travel as much. Case in point, tomorrow's episode, brief spoilers, tomorrow's episode is going to be an amethyst farm. It's going to be very, very purple. So we will end up doing a lot of amethyst stuff. We might even touch on the amethyst in this episode because the crystals are going to be growing while we're mining, while we're farming oak and stuff. So we can add that to the docket of Choppin. The reason I bring that up before we even log into the world is because I've already decorated a little bit of stuff with amethyst. So you'll see some amethyst around. Spoilers for tomorrow's episode, okay? Hopefully people are here just to hang out and they don't really care that much about spoilers. Some sort of Firefly, thank you so much for the 100 bits. Good thing purple is your favorite color. Excellent. It's a good color for Twitch. Ruined now, I know, right? How are we going to recover from this? Liking the splash screen message today. Let's log in. Let's do this. Dr. Dior, welcome in. Thank you so much for hopping by the stream. Hope you're having a good one. So yes, as you can see, we've been silk touching some amethyst buds. We got some amethyst blocks. And down here now, yes, it's a Geode nether portal. And I saw a lot of people doing these as soon as the amethyst blocks were introduced. I just think they look gorgeous. Like, look at this. It's so nice. I'm going to keep the chest there. The chest is the one thing that kind of stands out right now. But man, like, they just look so good. They always look so good. Let's throw some of this stuff in the bin. I mean, and by in the bin, I mean in the storage system. So yeah, back in full armor, not wearing the Elytra for now. We're going to be doing a bit of flying around another time, but I think for today's stream we won't need it much. We don't really need the armor either, but it's Kind of nice to just feel like we're wearing full armor for once. And we'll chuck the rest of these in here. Up in there, we can throw all of this in. The smooth quartz doesn't have a block of quartz doesn't have a place yet. Everything else, I believe, does. And then we'll put the amethyst clusters up here in the barrel above, where I've already got some shards waiting to be turned into probably like tinted glass or maybe more amethyst blocks if we really need them. I doubt we will, but if we're going to be decorating nether portals, this is my idea, and I go into this in the episode, so again, minor spoilers, but my idea is to imagine that all nether portals are effectively formed within geodes in the landscape, and so wherever we set up a nether portal, like say for example we might set one up here, both so I can show how close you can link nether portals if you have the coordinates matched more accurately, but also so that we can return to our storage system nice and easily. And I might put one here, and I might just have a geode surrounding that as well. And so it's almost like this network of geodes, and kind of gives a different vibe to the nether than just like, it's the hell place that we go to, and all portals must look kind of, you know, they're not all dread portals, you know what I mean? I feel like that's where I'm going with it, at least. What's the agenda for today? Chop wood, and hang out and chat with people. And probably do a little bit of amethyst farming later if we have the opportunity. We'll throw those in there. We'll put the hoppers down here with the redstone components. I believe this one or one of these... I wanted one of these to be mob drops of some kind. I think we'll put the spider drops maybe in here, because string is something we can use a decent amount of. And then, yeah, redstone can go in here. We've got those to go upstairs. And then we're looking a little bit closer to organized. Just had nether portal spawn inside a geode. Oh, nice. So it actually generated that way naturally. That's so cool. I mean, obviously, like, you made the portal yourself, but if it was a portal you made in the nether and it emerged in a geode in the overworld, then that's fantastic. That's very, very good. Do I have plans decorating the storage room? I'm not just going to leave it like this. Like, I can't imagine, like, I've already started figuring out some ideas, but it's early days, you know? I want to give it the time. I want to do a bit of test building in creative to see what I can throw together in my creative test world, and then we'll build a bunch of stuff here in survival. But I'm just working on gathering the resources for it right now. Where did the creeper go? I know. I got a comment, or maybe somebody mentioned it in Twitch chat the other day when I was upstairs, like, sleeping in that bed, and someone was like, wait a minute, isn't there supposed to be a creeper in that painting? And yeah, I just like the idea that there is a creeper in that painting sometimes. The rest of the time he just wanders, does his own thing, you know? We don't have a great deal of acacia. I'm probably going to farm some more dark oak because I'm constantly using it. And I think we'll start farming azaleas, because we'll need a bunch of those for oak. We'll get some jungle woods. Yeah, we're just going to do a general purpose Choppin' Tuesday today. We've got plenty of bone meal, so we can do the azalea farm for at least a little while. And then we'll start planting the other trees, and they'll regrow later. Crazy Chef, thank you for the 6 months. MC Leslie with 100 bits. Late Blue with the 100 bits as well. Eliania, thank you for the 2 months. Rattlesnake with the 300 bits. Thank you all very much, and thank you for that little bit of early support there on the hype train. It's like the wizard paintings in Harry Potter. Yes, exactly. Didn't the baby zombie enter my house in yesterday's episode? A lot of people said it did, but I mean, like, if I had to kill it, I had to kill it. Like, it wasn't particularly noteworthy to me. Like, it's not something that I really noticed happening at the time when it did, so... And this is why I use acacia to farm oak, because it takes like 1 or 2 bone meal and it's immediately grown. Instead of standing there and you're spamming an oak sapling and the sapling is like, do I want to be a small tree? Do I want to be one of the trees that, like, pushes you to the floor because of the leaves generating above your heads? Do I want it to be one of the medium tall trees? Do I want to be one of the regular sized trees? And it just, like, consumes all the bone meal, whereas azalea's like, I know what height I can be. Let me just grow that now. I should honestly get the fortune hoe out and start just farming the leaves as well, because azalea saplings are nice to have. We can get a few leaves here and there by silk touching as well. Essentially, azaleas have life figured out. They really do. What's that like? Doing things like you in the survival guide world today. I'm going inside your first Lush cave. Oh, very nice. Enjoy. Lush caves are so fun. Like, they've got such interesting, like, features to them. Like, I'm really happy with how Lush caves came together. I thought the team did such a cool job on those. Right here, I believe. Yes, there we go. Fortune 3 Ho. Do azalea leaves despawn? Yes, they do. I mean, they don't if you place them by hand, but if you grow them, then yeah, they'll break down once there are no logs nearby. The cactus farm is an ugly brick thing. It sure is. It sure is. I love the combination of brick and cactus. I just think that's a good combo. See, I knew there was a log or two in there somewhere. The thing with azaleas is that they do have a couple of those offset logs towards the top, and that's the ones that I usually prefer to take down with a hoe. Just like split the leaves, and then you can usually find that log a lot easier. Just got to make sure it's not connected to this birch, and those will start despawning. We'll probably take some of the birch trees down as well, but in the meantime. I find this is also a really nice way of converting podzol into something I would use more frequently, because I don't build with podzol all that much. It's going to be nice to have in some places, but I do like rooted dirt a lot. I find rooted dirt more usable than podzol in most cases. Chillinest Villain, thank you so much for the 3 months. Medieval Knievel, excellent name. Thank you so much for the brand new Prime sub to the channel. Enjoy your emotes and your sub badge. Welcome to the Pixels. Why I'm not using shears for leaves? Because hoes have much more durability. Netherite hoe, 2000 durability. With unbreaking, it's going to last 8000 blocks before it breaks. Shears, 250 durability. You've basically broken them, even with unbreaking, by the time you take down, like, one decent-sized tree. And unbreaking and mending on shears just feels kind of impractical because you're having to repair them constantly. The hoe at least lasts a long time. And hoes can have fortune, which means they drop saplings instead of leaves, which is actually really useful for regrowing trees like this. How can you find dungeons in your world? There's a couple of different ways. They are one of the structures that cannot be located using in-game commands. So most of the time, if you're looking for them, like using external tools, people end up using map programs like Chunkbase. I think Chunkbase has a dungeon finder. Not certain how accurate it is as of 1.18, but it should be, because Chunkbase is usually pretty up-to-date with that stuff. Outside of that, though, it's just a matter of, like, looking for them. They will spawn more frequently. They generate more frequently below Y0 now. So you'll actually find them in deep slate layers more frequently than you find them in stone layers. Allegedly, at least. That's what I've been told. Plot Desk, thank you for the 3 months. Buildings are getting better and better. Thank you. I'm glad you like them. Music is loud? Okay, I can turn it down a touch more. It's just difficult because, like, I have desktop audio up high because I turned the game volume down a little bit for ease of recording. And then, like, I have Pretzel turned down to, like, 2% volume and it's still loud, so... Pretzel just is that way, I guess. I also talk kind of more quietly on streams than I do in videos because I'm less worried about, like, the presentational style. The streams are a lot more casual. It's much more relaxed. Yeah, chunk base is probably the most up-to-date thing that you can do online. There's a tool called Amethyst, which also works for, I was going to say for Java worlds, but then as of the most recent Bedrock betas, you can load the same world in both Bedrock and Java using the same seeds, so it won't necessarily guarantee that the structures are in the same place, so that's worth bearing in mind. Because on Bedrock Edition, pillager outposts can generate really close to villages, so there's like some spawning rules which are different. Is the new Skulk supposed to be mined with a hoe? I believe so, yeah. Like, think of Skulk as just, like, evil moss right now. Because it can be farmed with a hoe. It spreads kind of the way moss does, except it uses death instead of bone meal. Like, that seems to be what Skulk is, basically. Like, it's what they've modeled a lot of the mechanics on. The spread mechanic is going to work a little differently because it seems to be spreading in a larger area, but it's more or less evil moss. Like, it's death moss is what it is. Probably going to break this back a little bit. Just grab the sand. Getting a decent amount of oak wood, but we're also farming things like the saplings themselves, which I really like for decoration. And, you know, rooted dirt and stuff like that. Rooted dirt is better than regular dirt. See, I agree in terms of, like, the texture. It's got a lot more going on. It's more interesting. I think everything has its place, and the problem with rooted dirt is that you don't get it back as easily. Like, rooted dirt is nice, but in terms of, like, where regular dirt is at, you end up getting it back from farmland, path blocks, all of that kind of stuff. So it's easier to mess with rooted dirt. Is it smart to put Silk Touch on a hoe? Yeah, I mean, if you want a set of shears that lasts you for about twice as long, not twice as long, 10 times as long, then absolutely it is. Silk Touch Netherite hoe is basically like your best set of shears ever. Obviously, you can't shear sheep with it and whatnot, but at this point, all of my sheep are being sheared automatically. Do I have a hardcore world? No, I don't. I mean, I still have the hardcore world from my short-lived hardcore series, but I don't plan on going back to it. Maybe someday we'll get a practical way to farm the trader for rooted dirt. Honestly, I think rooted dirt is easy enough to get if you just have a decent bone meal farm and some azalea. And let's face it, if you have azalea, you have moss, which means you have the capacity to make a decent bone meal farm. Who do I recommend to build a slime farm? I mean, in terms of what type of player or whose slime farm design do I recommend? Because I feel like the one that is most commonly used was sort of pioneered by Ilmango and the Psycraft group, was the kind with, like, iron golems up the walls and stuff. I haven't seen if anybody's built a slime farm in the new terrain and what other considerations there are for that, but there's definitely a bunch of stuff going on in the new terrain that means your slime farms can be A, much larger, and B, require a lot more work. Because slime chunks are still a thing. You still need to, ideally, for spawn rates, have your slime farm working as far down in the world as possible. Having said that, slimes still only spawn within 128 block radius of the player. So yes, you can AFK down there and you'll get a decent amount of slime, but one of the advantages of slime farms before was that slimes don't pause their movement when you're far enough away like other mobs do. And so you could still be running around on the surface and slimes would still be spawning down in the area where you have your slime farm. I don't know if that's going to be the case as much anymore because they're going to be built down to bedrock for the best spawn rates, but there will be a much lower chance of you being within range of those spawning platforms which are furthest down. So you would need to AFK at it to get a reasonable spawn rate from the best platforms. Yesterday you explored your world in your event, you filled up pretty quickly. Can't wait to craft an ender chest. Yeah, ender chests are so useful in early game. Like, I never used to rely on them all that much, but since we get so used to using shulkers and having more portable inventory, and because there's so much stuff in the world that you want, you spend so much more time exploring in 1.18, I do think ender chests are very important to early game now. Just go to the local swamp on a full moon. I'll probably do that the first time I start talking about slimes, but I think long-term having a big slime farm is worthwhile for bigger projects with automation, larger like redstone doors and stuff like that. You need a lot of slime blocks for stuff like that. Would I play on Bedrock Edition? I have done several times in the past. I don't have long-term worlds on Bedrock Edition, but I have done like series for like a sponsored series with NVIDIA where I covered Minecraft RTX. I've done bits and pieces on Bedrock before. I did a Bedrock Achievement Guide week in Survival Guide once as like a... I think it was one of the sort of charity incentives that we got on a stream a while ago was I'll do an entire week's worth of videos from Bedrock Edition, and at that point I did an achievement guide to like getting all of the achievements in Minecraft Bedrock within a week. I don't know if I'd be able to do the same thing this season because it would mean I'd have to create another Microsoft account to get all of the achievements pop up on screen because I've already claimed a bunch of them on my main gamer tag, you know? Slime farm and a slime chunk with AFK 125 blocks above. Yeah, but that's the thing. That was my point, was that my previous slime farm in Founder's Forge in Season 1 of Survival Guide worked really well because I could just be more or less anywhere around. What's up, Casto? Thank you for 16 months, buddy. Choppin is going well. We're farming azalea right now, which is a lovely wood. I mean, it's oak, but it's a lovely way of getting oak wood. We'll throw those in here for now, and I think I'll start keeping azalea saplings and stuff in here. Yeah, no, I had a slime farm at Founder's Forge in my previous world, which would be active even when I was like 64 blocks up and 64 blocks away, like on any side. So while I was working on the castle at Founder's Forge, my slime farm was working the entire time. But if I was around here, if I had a slime farm that was built all the way down to bedrock and then I was building a castle on the surface, the minute I get a couple of blocks above sea level, then the bottom platform of that farm is going to be useless. How much time is there between filming and releasing a Survival Guide episode? It depends how organized I am at the time. Right now, I recorded tomorrow's episode before I started the stream, so I finished about 2:30, and now I'm starting my stream at 3. So basically it's like less than 24 hours between it being recorded and uploaded. I will edit that after I finish my stream today. It'll get uploaded to YouTube close to like maybe like around 8-9 o'clock my time, and then it'll go up 11 o'clock the next day. So it's really not that long of a turnaround, but like in a way that's a good thing. Like, it has its advantages and disadvantages. The main thing is that if there are any interesting developments in Minecraft in the meantime, if there are changes, if there are snapshots, if there is news about the next update, if the next update were to come out at some point, then it doesn't take me long to get to that content right away, you know? Like, if I think there's something that's really worth sharing at this stage in Survival Guide, then I can get to it immediately instead of it turning up in like 5 or 6 episodes time because I have a backlog. But on the other hand, excuse me, it does mean that I'm like making episodes like the day before, and I haven't started any big projects right now, but I feel like there'd be a bit more like time pressure. But at this point, I'm coasting. Like it's easy to make videos at this point because there are so many concepts that I can introduce to people and do like a basic overview of, and that's an episode because we're still in the early stages of this world, and I'm not taking it for granted that my viewers know a bunch of stuff yet. A lot of them do, because a lot of them are seasoned Minecraft players and they just feel like watching the guide for fun and to refresh their memory about some of these mechanics, but I'm also trying to keep in mind the viewers who are either there now or will be there in future who have no idea about some of this stuff because they're new to Minecraft. Is there a world download of the Pixel Rift for old members? There was one in the Discord, if you were still in the Discord within the last, like, month. The Discord is now closed down, so those downloads do still exist, and if you're in touch with anybody who was still on the Discord while it was in the process of closing down, then they will have access to that, and, like, I have no problem with people sharing those world downloads around. Where are we? What's the whole thing about hidden villager skins that don't normally show up in games? So jungle and swamp villagers do not have, like, structures associated with them, right? So there are no villagers that spawn in jungles or swamps, but there are outfits that are specific to jungles and swamps when it comes to villager, like, skins. We were talking about this a little bit on the Spawn Chunks the other day, so if you're interested in hearing a more in-depth discussion about this, thespawnchunks.com or wherever you find your podcasts. And so I think the main reason that jungle and swamp villages aren't generated in-game is because those aren't particularly good environments for villagers. Swamps are full of water, and as you know about more or less any mob that goes in water, it's not like they have depth strider or anything. It slows them down a great deal. They're just like inching towards land if they know where they're going, and most of the time mobs just get completely stuck in water. And so that's 50% of a swamp. And if you end up putting up like walkways, if like a village had paths everywhere for the villagers to go, they would still end up walking off those platforms because they'd try and pathfind to a different block, and you'd have to completely rewrite villagers' pathfinding to avoid that. Jungles, there are leaves, like, everywhere on the floor of a jungle, and you can imagine a villager wandering into, like, something like this in a jungle, which generates all the time in jungle terrain. They have no means of getting themselves out again. So I imagine that jungle and swamp villagers, aside from obviously being a cool incentive for players to discover stuff like that on their own and like come up with a design for a jungle village if they can conceive of one, I think it makes a lot of mechanical sense for the game to not include those villagers, because the villagers are just going to end up getting stuck, and you'd have to make villager code a lot more robust to allow for them to not get stuck in those situations. Hey, what's up, Tanisha? Good to see you. Is your hardcore world still going? I haven't been able to pop by the streams in a while. Hope you're well. Rubel, thanks so much for the 400 bits. Very kind of you. Thank you so much. 6,000 days? That's wild. You're a machine. That's really, really cool. We'll have to stop by. We'll raid in sometime, and we'll have to see what the world's looking like these days. What are you working on? Last time I saw you, I think you were still working on stuff in the end, but the end was looking incredible. Make an April Fool cat-based string farm. I don't want to kill cats. It feels rough. What's the new best level to mine for diamonds? As close to bedrock as you can, usually around Y59, negative 59, negative 60, because that's where all of the highest concentrations of diamonds in the world are if you're branch mining for them. But honestly, I tend to prefer just finding diamonds while caving because it feels like you're covering a lot more ground. There's a lot of diamond hidden under the surface that you're not going to find, but occasionally finding one diamond ore on the surface leads to like 3 or 4, and if you've got fortune, that's like, it's eventually you get enough diamonds, right? If you're mining for diamonds for like a server economy, that's a different thing because you'll need a lot of diamonds to like pay for stuff or whatever, but I honestly think if you're just in a single player world and you just need diamonds for equipment, then like you don't really need to do that much strip mining. I've not really done any branch mining in this world at all. And strip mining is going to be harder when you can't really insta-mine deep slate even with a haste beacon. Strip mining for diamonds through deep slate now is such a pain, right? It's absurd. Transforming the Nether into an ocean oasis. Wow, that sounds fun. Good luck with that. I do love those transformative projects though, like turning something like a dimension that feels so inhospitable as the Nether does into something that looks radically different. It's just such an interesting way to play the game. I've already found more caving than branch mining. Yeah, no, I think that's... You know, it ultimately just comes down to what your preferred gameplay style is. Like, there is opportunity to find diamonds basically any way you slice it. You just need to have the mindset of like, alright, which one do I want to do today? Oh, and this tree's going to be a problem because it's... Yeah, it's limiting the height that the other jungle trees can grow at. Jungle still has this problem. Where it's like, I don't want to grow next to another jungle tree. I'm like, come on. It just eats bone meal. If I move it like 2 blocks over here, try and grow this. There we go, instantly. If a baby villager is made in the jungle or the swamp, would it have the according clothing? It depends. It's about a 50-50 chance. If your villager is born from 2 parents from whatever other type of villager. Say like you got some desert villagers, you move them to a jungle. Sometimes the baby villager has the parents' clothes, sometimes it has jungle clothing. So it can vary.
Well, that's just prime.
And Sharia, thanks so much for that Prime sub. A brand new sub to the channel. Enjoy your emotes and your sub badge. Welcome to the Pixels. Happy to have you with us. Such a satisfying feeling. Chewing through all of these leaves and hopefully getting a decent amount of jungle saplings. Got a couple over here as well. The jungle outfits look like a cheeseburger. They really do. I've been calling them cheeseburger villagers since like 1.14. Cannot unsee. Tolan, if I want to make auto farms in your survival world or not, do they take the challenge out of the world? Don't they basically make it creative mode? It depends, because you still can't fly. You're still having to figure out ways to gather the resources. Like, it's just another way of collecting stuff, and it depends what kind of projects you want to work on. Like, if you want the satisfaction of struggling to obtain every resource and, like, you know, the feeling that comes from having mined every block out of the world by hand, then that's up to you. But I think automatic farms can just cut out the middleman a little bit. Like, it can let you get to the stuff that, like, allows it to be fun if the fun for you is the building part. Like, I like the grind of Minecraft. I like a bit of a balance, as you can tell from the fact that I harvest all my trees manually instead of doing like an automatic tree farm at this stage in the world. I also don't really have the resources for it yet because I need stuff like a slime farm and whatnot. But like, yeah, like if you want it to feel more rewarding for you to to feel like it's a, you know, you dug that dirt yourself with your bare hands, walking both ways uphill kind of thing, then go for it. But if you, you know, if you want to get to the building part quicker, or if you would rather not mine trees manually, if there's a ton of stuff that wants to come together, it allows you to build bigger, it allows you to take on more ambitious projects if some of the stuff in your world is automated and you don't need it to take like a full year to get all the resources that you want. Mining with a stick is the new thing. I mean, if sticks would get me diamonds, then I would try it at least once. What level does slime spawn in 118? Same as previous. Like anywhere under Y40. Or obviously on the surface if you're in a swamp. But the slime chunks are basically like from the same height and they go further down. What am I planning on doing with the series now I've beaten Minecraft? Literally everything else. In Survival Guide Season 1, we beat the dragon on episode 25, and that episode went for 360 plus episodes. We can do a great deal of stuff in this game after we've beaten the dragon. In fact, beating the dragon for some people is like the beginning of the game. Most of the time, big servers like Hermitcraft, they start a new season, they beat the dragon like day 3, if that. Like, people speedrun to get to the dragon just so it's out of the way and they can focus on like having wings and flying around and using shulker boxes and all of that stuff. Now it's about base building, it's about farming resources, it's about what we can possibly do with Minecraft. It's also about beating the Wither, which we haven't even touched on yet. Like, I haven't really farmed Wither skeleton skulls yet at all. I think I might have a vague handful from other trips to the Nether before, but we don't really need to worry about that right now. Tango took out the dragon on day 1. Grian did it too in the last season to get the dragon egg for Teg, and there's like a bunch of reasons that you should consider fighting the dragon early if you're on a server, or if you're in a world where you know what you're doing and you just want to get to the part that makes it fun for you. Have I even traveled 1 million blocks eastward? Boz, only you have done that. Only you and Kurt J. Mack, and even then I don't know which direction Kurt's traveling, so it might not be east. How you doing, Boz? Hope you're going well with the new job and everything. I suppose it's not really a new job anymore, it's like you've been working there for a couple of months now. Do you even east, bro? Well, for me, every direction is north. I've discussed this in a video or on a stream before, but I always end up thinking, like... I always think of the direction I leave my house as being north. I navigate relative to the direction of my front door, regardless of what direction I build my front door in the first place. Excited to see what Grian's new tag is going to be. I'm honestly excited to see him do something different. Like, I get that for some people, like, it's funny to have, like, a follow-up idea to something, but Grian is such a good, like, content creator. He's, like, an ideas factory for stuff that's going to make things fun and interesting. And, like, he has the brain for that kind of stuff. And so it feels like a shame to see somebody like that end up recycling the same couple of ideas, because you know he's capable of a lot more than that. Leon, thank you so much for gifting that sub. And Kurosi Gaming, thank you for the 2 months of Prime. Tugizo, thank you so much for the 2 months of Prime as well. Appreciate that very much. Magnetic north, grid north, and then my front door north. Yes, my front door actually faces south, which has been very confusing for me. What's the best XP farm in 118? Probably still a nether roof gold farm, but obviously only if you're in Java Edition. If you're in Bedrock Edition, who knows at this point? Because, like, they've taken away Furnace XP duplication now, so, like, I don't know what Bedrock users are doing these days. Probably some kind of Trident Killer-based Guardian or Overworld Gold Farm or something. Nick Nanimus, thank you so much for the 2 months. Says, love the content, very informative and entertaining. Thank you. Glad you enjoy it. And Metals666 Edge has subscribed using Prime. Thank you so much for the Prime sub. Boz says, job is great. Many tech issues, though, can get very frustrating. Job's a job, innit? That's the way with most things. I can imagine very few jobs that are free of technical frustrations. This one included. Apparently they've added a new exploit by accident. It's even stronger than Furnace XP. Really? That's funny. I get most of my Bedrock information from just following Prowl on Twitter, so I haven't seen anything about that. But if they have, then that's hilarious. Probably a very good thing, though. When will I finish the storage house? When I have decent ideas for it. I still need to do a bit more creative building, but been focusing on other projects in the meantime. Prowl has over 2,000 levels. Yeah, and that's probably why he's tweeting stuff about, like, XP should be reworked. And I'm like, I get it. Like, it's a conversation I'll probably end up having on the spawn chunks soon, because I like the thought behind it. But it relies heavily on the idea that everybody who plays Minecraft is going to be, like, using an XP farm at some stage. And I don't think that's true. I would love to see, like, this is the kind of stuff that we don't have as a community. We don't really have, like, demographics on. You can take a poll, but your poll is going to be influenced by the type of audience you have. And people who follow more technical YouTubers like Prowl are more likely to have followed his design for an XP farm at some stage. And so I kind of wonder, with all the discussion around XP, especially on Bedrock right now, like, does XP really need that much of a revision? Like he's suggesting, does it need to be used for something different? Do levels need to be easier or harder to obtain to balance that? Like, I don't know. Any hints for tomorrow's episode? Yes. I will show you in a second, once I can get over here and get a good look at it. There you go. There's a hint. Have I seen Ijevan's thoughts on the Infinity Enchantment? Yeah, and I kind of disagree. Like, I see where he's coming from. Much like some of the stuff Prowl says about Infinity versus Mending and stuff like that. Like, I can see where you're coming from. Personally, I like Infinity because it's just one less thing I have to think about. Like, I don't really enjoy combat in this game as, like, the primary source of fun for me. Like, I understand it being a survival game, and so there being something else that you need to manage is kind of part of it, in the same way that you need to make sure you keep eating food or something. But honestly, if I had a way of just, like, not worrying about food for a while, like golden carrots, because you don't have to eat them as frequently, then I would take that. Because that's not the part of the game that's fun for me. The part of the game that's fun for me is acquiring resources and building using them. Like, I would appreciate, like, the idea of mending... not mending, I mean... I'd appreciate the idea of Infinity going away from bows and not being an option if it had already applied to things like spectral arrows, potion-tipped arrows. Like, if it was OP that way, then that's one thing. But bows, they're already pretty powerful. Having one inventory slot with a single arrow in, meaning you can fire infinite arrows, that's pretty cool, in a sense. But I don't think it's making things as easy as people make it out to be. You know? Like, I think, honestly, it's just providing some convenience for players who don't really care that much about the combat aspect of the game. And I already sleep all of the time, but I gotta fight stuff eventually. And it's just nice to not have to worry about running out of arrows. Like, yeah, game balance is the most important thing, but this is a sandbox game, and like a lot of the time the balance comes from providing players with some measure of convenience. That's where I come from on the subject anyway. Let's plant a few of these around. We're not going to bone meal them because they'll grow on their own, and honestly I don't have that much bone meal. I have a decent amount in storage, I just don't want to use all of it right away. We'll get some acacia trees growing as well. Why did Mojang have to put 2 trees with basically identical names in this game? Why did they do that? It's like saying shulker boxes are too OP. In a way, yeah. I mean, again, it's a convenience thing, and obviously people are more sensitive to what is powerful versus what is convenient when it comes to things like combat. Because if you're in the PvP community, obviously, like... yeah, anything that makes you, like, gives you an advantage, like having infinite arrows in a combat situation, is going to feel very different to, you know, the advantage of having infinite storage in a building situation. Like, you still have to organize that storage somehow. Good with either bow no matter what. Each one is costing me a slot for an arrow/arrows. Yeah, I mean... I wouldn't honestly mind that much if Infinity was gone. It'd just be one more thing to remember, but I like not having to remember that one more thing right now. Have I played Bed Wars? I have not. Like I said, I have no real interest in combat in this game. Like, PvP-wise or... really in PvE, like, combat is not the point of the game for me, so... I feel like if I was into the PvP aspect of Minecraft, I probably wouldn't want to play Minecraft. It doesn't seem like the best game for PvP for me. It's just a game that a lot of people have access to. Like, if I wanted to fight other people in some sort of combat situation, I'd still be playing Destiny. Or I'd be playing competitive Pokemon or something, you know? It's one of the things that really interests me about the future of Pokemon spin-off games like Legend Arceus is, like, do they have an idea for what the competitive scene looks like in a game like that? And were they more looking for feedback on the whole sort of agile, strong style moves and, like, the turn order that they implemented, that they changed about Legends Arceus compared to the traditional turn-based combat of previous Pokemon titles? I'm still very curious about how that went for Game Freak and the Pokemon Company. Dungeons is a great combat form of Minecraft. I mean, yeah, and that's... for a start, it's not PvP, but it's also a game that is focusing on combat as the gameplay. Whereas in Minecraft, it's much more about survival. And people, you know, were able to create combat situations out of a survival game. But it's not like Notch wrote the game to be like a combat simulator. There is no PvP in Arceus. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's my point. Is like, did they get enough feedback from competitive Pokemon players saying, like, we would like to see this kind of combat brought into a situation where we could PvP? Like, we want to be able to battle with this new system. Or are competitive players saying, like, no, this would never work, there's too much different about it? Because for me, that's the ideal Pokemon game. Because while I think it needs a few more trainer battles, you can completely opt out of the community aspect. Like, you can still participate in it if you want to trade Pokemon. But if you don't feel like trading Pokemon, if you don't feel like, you know, tracking down people to wander trade with, or I mean... either tracking down people to trade with or surprise trading, wonder trading, whatever it ends up getting called. Like, you can complete the game entirely on your own. Like, it's a self-contained game. How does Mojang receive feedback from players? In a variety of ways. They listen to players in all sorts of places. There is an official feedback website. There's a bug tracker for, like, specifically technical issues, but there is an official feedback website for Minecraft. I'm sure they get emails. I'm sure they listen to... I mean, a few of the developers listen to the podcast I make. A couple of them have been on the podcast, you know, and there's other podcasts out there that cover Minecraft that I'm sure the developers listen to with similar interest. They read Reddit threads, they watch YouTube videos. The developers are very in touch with the community. Like, they'll tweet stuff and just be like, what do you guys think about this? Like, so much of the feedback that I saw from the texture update when that happened in 1.14 was from people sharing YouTube videos on their thoughts or posting on Twitter about it and, like, tagging Jabba and the art team. As someone who plays competitive Pokemon, I'd be up for the new Legends Arceus system. I mean, I think any kind of PvP experience is going to be fine as long as everybody is on a level playing field, right? As long as everybody is using the same mechanics as everybody else. It's not like having Bedrock players versus Java players in Minecraft, where Bedrock players crouch to automatically use their shield and combat is spam clicking, versus like Java Edition where combat is slower and you hold shield with right click and that kind of stuff. Like, there are some changes there, but I think everybody is using the same stuff, and like the differences in like maybe their equipment and their own reflexes and stuff in a system like this. Whereas, yeah, with Pokemon, obviously they have a chance to set up their own system by which people battle. A lot of people want another combat update in Minecraft. Be interested to know your thoughts on it. I mean, I don't really care because I'm not that interested in PvP. So, like, most of the combat changes in Minecraft would be taking place in, like, in the frame of, is this going to improve the game for PvP players who still prefer to play on 1.8? Which is now 10 versions into the past. Like, 1.8 is when I started playing Minecraft. I've been playing Minecraft for nearly 8 years now. Like, I've been making YouTube videos for nearly 8 years. So, like, there are some players for whom the game has not moved on for that amount of time. And there is no opportunity for some of the other weapons they've introduced, like crossbows and tridents and stuff, to be part of the PvP meta. Whether that would change if people all played on a more recent version and it had the old combat, who knows, because, like, I don't think tridents are a particularly effective PvP weapon. But they could be, because if they made the changes that they're planning on doing, where it works a little bit more like Bedrock and impaling deals more damage if somebody is in the rain or is standing in water, then that has the potential to open things up a lot more. And I would honestly be fine with whatever changes they make to combat, as long as it's still possible to have some control over hostile mobs in a PvE situation, because I mostly just play survival and I don't play PvP very much. Like, I say very much, at all. Like, I haven't played any kind of PvP setting for years. And Psycraft are just updating now, but they're updating for other reasons. Like, their concern is much more the technical side of things, whether it's mechanics that have been changed in further updates, or if it's server performance and stability. Because of the scale of the projects they make, they need to be certain that a lot of their contraptions and stuff are A, still going to work with updated Redstone mechanics, and B, viable on a server where performance is going to be limited. I don't think they're upgrading all the way to 118, are they? Because again, like, even with the performance optimizations they made for 118 worlds, I feel like the new world height and depth is still going to be a problem. Also makes it way harder to make, like, projects with perimeters and things. Oh, are they going to 118? I mean, if it was me, if I was on that server, which I'm not, and I have no interest in being, obviously, but I would almost appreciate the challenge, in a sense, but yeah, it really depends on your perspective and the kind of projects they have in mind to do. Like, I don't know how much of it is considered a challenge and how much of it is considered an impediment to them with their vision for what they want to do with technical stuff. Psycrafters seem like the type of people who could build missiles in real life. They're the kind of people who could build Iron Man in a cave. From a box of scraps. Well, sun's going down, so at least we don't have to worry about the rain for very long. Let's go drop this wood off. I swear, every time I come through here, there's an Enderman. I don't know if that's just a fluke, or if I just spend enough time around here that I hear the same Enderman and it hasn't despawned or teleported away. Play with Purpose, thank you for the 3 months. Random question, when you're recording for your podcast, are you and Joel in person together, video chatting, or just a phone call coming from someone who has no idea how podcasts work? So we have a Discord community for the Spawn Chunks podcast. And we do all of our shows live in a call on Discord that everybody else can listen into, but doesn't have, like, chatting privileges, basically. So everybody is forced into a situation where they are muted and Joel and I are the only ones they can hear, and that allows people to listen into the podcast live. You can also do that with Discord stages, I believe, but we've been doing this since before stages were a thing, and stages are really more for, like, more audience participation kind of stuff. But yeah, Joel and I have never met in person. Joel lives in Canada, I live in the UK, and we've only been doing the podcast for like 3.5 years now, which seems like a long time, but remember, for two of those years, coronavirus has been a thing, and we haven't really been able to travel as freely. So it's not exactly a situation where I'm able to, like, pop around for a cup of coffee, you know? But yeah, most of the people I've collaborated with on a more regular basis I have never met in person. There are a couple of exceptions to that, and recent exceptions as well. A few folks from the 8-bit community server who are like a wonderful group of content creators, mostly here on Twitch. Like, I've met a couple of them in person. But yeah. I'm fine collaborating with people long distance. Like, I think it's obviously allowed for a lot more collaborations to happen than would have happened otherwise. So I think it's a genuinely good thing. But I would still like the option to hang out with people, you know? World could have been so different. That's the thing that I always think about, is like, so much could have been different. Like, Minecraft Festival would have happened at least twice by now. Like, I might actually have been able to hang out with and meet other Minecraft players in person. More than just, like, the occasional visit. Like, we could have been doing panels, we could have been doing all kinds of interesting stuff. I think that's the hardest thing about all of this, really, is, like, imagining what could have been. What countries or places would I want to visit? I'd like to travel a lot more. My wife's family is from the US. So, like, I'd like to travel more in the US. We were talking about going to New York to see some of their friends. And I've got a few friends who live in or around New York as well, so it's kind of an interesting place to go. Because my wife is from the West Coast, so they've been, like, you know, around the West Coast, California, Oregon, places like that, but like I'd like to travel more on the East Coast. I'd like to go to more places in Europe. Love to go back to Spain at some point. We've had a couple of opportunities to holiday in Europe over the last 5 years. We went to Amsterdam, we went to Madrid and Valencia, and all three of those are just fantastic places to visit. Yeah, I've got friends in all different parts of the world now, some of whom it would be really cool to see in person. Going to Canada would be super fun to go and hang out with Joel, have a beer with him, and just say hi in person for a while. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that I'd like to travel at some point. Been to France a couple of times. Never really been to Asia.
Well, that's just
I mean, yeah, ZloyXP lives in Russia. Like, it would be cool to hang out with him at some stage, whether he came to see us or vice versa, you know. I have friends in Belgium. I don't really have... I don't know of anybody who lives in Belgium. I mean, obviously, there's a ton of people from all sorts of places in my community, but a lot of those aren't people that I would consider, like, friends that I would go and stay with, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know anybody who lives in Belgium, necessarily. Come to Ireland on the way. Yeah, and I have a couple of friends over in Ireland as well. A music disc's part of tomorrow's episode? Nope. Guess again. The trick to manual tree farming and not using a ton of bone meal is just to plant enough saplings that a tree grows every time you've turned around. Seems to be working out alright so far. Addicted to watching you play Random Bingo. I've only been able to watch them via Pixel VOD or Twitch Archive. Find myself yelling at the stream that you've not tried or missed something. Yeah, I'm probably not going to do many more of those randomized bingo streams. Mainly because what I like to do on streams is behind the scenes work for Survival Guide, and now we're back from the end and I've done the whole, like, end raid, Elytra, Shulker boxes kind of stuff. There is a lot more that we can do on streams that I don't need to stall for, basically. And streams can also be used for stuff like resource collection and the in-between work of some projects that are going to appear on videos. Like, if we want to just do a planning episode where I plan out where some stuff is going to go in an eventual base location, then yeah, I can do more stuff like that. We can plot out a few structures around here, maybe some stuff with the storage system. We can just fill up areas of the storage system or keep working on figuring out where everything's going to go. All of the little behind-the-scenes stuff that it makes sense to do on streams instead of on camera, because it's tedious enough on camera, but on stream I can get instant feedback about where stuff is and how stuff should look. You can dye shulkers in Minecraft. Yes, you can. I haven't covered that yet because we haven't really done an episode about what I'm going to do with the shulker boxes. We've just said, oh, you can store stuff in them and take them with you, but there is a lot we can do with shulker boxes, especially in the storage system, because we can set up systems to automatically load and unload them with resources, that kind of stuff. And eventually it's going to lead into, we have enough shulker boxes that we can just pack a bunch of those into our ender chest and take those to the base, and there will be some resources that we pretty much always have with us, because that's a useful thing to have when you're playing Minecraft long term. Is like, you've got a box that has a bunch of saplings in case you need to grow wood somewhere, a ton of bone meal, or the different dyes, or redstone components, basically anything that you end up using long term to create farms and builds. How to get this much bone meal? Mainly from just fighting skeletons. I haven't found a a skeleton spawner, which I really hoped I would before we got onto more advanced bone meal farms. I've had crop farms here for a while, some of which I've run through composter automation, so we have a bit of bone meal in here. But most of it has been from, yeah, spoilers for tomorrow, most of it has been from the skeletons that just spawn around here, and there have been nights when, like I was doing with the preparing for the dragon episode, I was waiting for phantoms to spawn. I was just running around killing creepers for gunpowder. There were a lot of skeletons out. I killed them most of the time when I saw them, just so I could get some bone meal in the process. So I have like a couple of stacks of bones in here. I have bone blocks from the nether. There's bunches of stuff. We're going to leave the ink sacks in here because that's dye. Again, there's still some stuff that I will go to this storage system for, but I need to start transitioning the majority of that over this way. Poor skellies. I mean, I can understand people having sympathy for skeletons. We've all got one. But my general rule of thumb in this game is do not have sympathy for anything that respawns. Which is more or less everything. Like, it sucks, obviously, to, like, kill some of the animals that people have a little bit more of an attachment to, sentimentally. Like, the cows and sheep and everything, even. They're very cute. But, like, it's a video game, and they are also providing resources to a certain extent. As with real life, it's important to consider where these things come from before you take advantage of them that way. I never kill a turtle. I mean, in Turtle's case, they've engineered the mechanics around turtles so that there is no need to. But in a bingo run, I will kill one if I see it before I see seagrass, you know? There's like... There's opportunities in which, like, you kill a turtle with a lightning strike, it turns into a wooden bowl. Cubvan makes an entire episode about that, you know? Like, we're YouTubers, it's content. I made a little sanctuary for turtles, now I have far too many of them. That's the thing, turtles, you get scutes from them by breeding them and having them grow up. But then if you don't kill them, you just end up with a ton of turtles, which aren't providing you with any more, like, resources. You just send them off into the world, I guess. Overpopulation. And it's not like they do any harm other than maybe causing a bit of lag with pathfinding, but... if you want to brew a decent amount of Turtle Master potions, you're going to need a lot of turtles to do that. Is there something specific needed for turtles to breed? You need to shear seagrass and feed it to them. I won't kill horses, but just because I hate the sound? Yeah, same. I don't tend to kill horses. I mean, cows drop more leather anyway. And cows also drop useful food. But yeah, the sound of killing horses is like... them and ghasts are the ones that I just find awful. Now that we're back from the end, I actually need to get more scaffolding for stuff like this. I find myself building upwards with the logs that I've just been chopping down. I'm like, why am I doing this when I could just put scaffolding down? Cows drop more leather. I'm pretty sure they do, if you kill them with looting. Like, they both drop probably the same amount of leather, but I think cows drop more when you kill them with looting. Oh. How much cactus was that? Oh, just 2. Okay, fine. If there's been any more like that, it's probably despawned. But there's one dead spot in this farm where the water streams don't, like... they don't always flow around that block particularly well. Yeah, it's got that very nails on a chalkboard kind of vibe to it, doesn't it? What else can we farm today? I'm not going to do any spruce. We have enough spruce for the moment. We might end up farming some birch, because birch is going to be worthwhile having in this build. We can put these away for the minutes. I've got so many sticks on me. I can throw the apples in there as well. We could silk touch some of the leaves, maybe. I don't really have great leaf storage up here, though. You know what? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for a little while. Just in case we need them for stuff. Am I going to get netherite? I have netherite. Got netherite hoe, 2 netherite pickaxes, netherite boots. There's no rush to get all of the other stuff. Like, diamond is equally fine. I don't tend to die in lava very often, so...
Well, that's just prime.
For you, the most irritating sound is silverfish. Silverfish are awful. Like, they do not sound pleasant. They're not meant to, either, but, like, it's worse than spiders. Angry Chair, thank you so much for the Prime sub. Cali Salvo, thank you for the 7 months. Odd to me that you didn't upgrade the sword earlier because it actually does more damage. I mean, all of the weapons do more damage. Like, the axe would do 10 attack damage. I just don't really have a great deal of need for more damage when I can just kill things in a couple of hits anyway. Jessica Saurus, thank you so much for the tier 1 sub. Brand new sub to the channel. Enjoy your emotes and your sub badge. Welcome to the Pixels. Spiders dying on magma blocks is pretty bad. I'm trying to think of the damage noises silverfish make. But I tend to think of them as more satisfying noises because it means the silverfish is dying. We'll get a couple of stacks of leaves this way. And honestly, different types of leaves are worth having for decorative purposes later. And what I think we can do is we'll put them in one of the storage system chests where we can lay out the 6 different colors of leaves from regular overworld trees, and then we'll farm a bunch of azalea and we'll just have like a bulk chest of those, because I think I use those more than any other leaf type now. They're just good. They're a nice bright color. They work in every biome. One of my favorite textures as well. A hose or shears quicker to break leaves. Either doesn't make a difference. I mean, it only makes a difference once you have, like, a hoe that is lower tier than iron. Like, iron hoes break leaves instantly, the same as shears. Like, once you're using iron to break any of it, it just doesn't make a difference anymore. We'll put these in here for now. The dark oak can go there. Acacia can go there. Makes sense. And yeah, we'll hop down here for a sec. Breakfast has been cooked. All right, enjoy your breakfast. Bon appetit. Why am I not using my Elytra? Because I don't have that many rockets right now. And I haven't really killed any creepers in the meantime. I don't have a mob farm. I'm not going to set up a mob farm just for this stream. We're going to cover mob farming gradually in the series. I'm not going to, like, rush straight to it right away. So I'm not going to just waste all of my rockets flying around harvesting trees. Where did I put... There's some scaffolding in here. Is that all I have? I can also empty this chest out. But yeah, like I'd use up a stack of rockets just going like back and forth. I'd save myself a bit of time, but then why do I need to save time on this stream? I'm literally just chopping wood. Hash browns and sausage, best breakfast. I haven't had hash browns for a while. Holy Trinity of wood types is azalea, dark oak, and spruce. I mean, azalea is just oak, but... Get rid of some of these. Slowly turning this entire island into podzol. How do you move the growing amethyst crystals? You can silk touch them. You cannot break the budding amethyst blocks that the crystals grow from, so do not try to move any of those. But you can break the small buds of amethyst that are growing from them, and you can move those. But you have to have silk touch. Rest of the time, you won't get anything unless it's a fully grown amethyst cluster, and then you'll just get amethyst shards. Is there any way to insta-break wood? Not on Java Edition. I mean, other than TNT. Like, when people put tree farms together, they farm them with TNT. But then TNT insta-breaks everything that it can destroy, so... That's no more remarkable than it is using TNT to insta-destroy anything else. Do I have any suggestions for your main base in your hardcore world? No. I mean, it feels weird, but like I don't know anything about what your world looks like, and I spend so much of my time in my own worlds building stuff based on the surroundings. Like I get inspired by the terrain. I look at the scenery and think, "Hey, what would look good here?" Also, if I have any good ideas for your base, I'm saving them for my base, so sorry. But I kind of need those ideas for YouTube content. Am I late? Check your pulse. Nice base. I think I'll take it. Geeky Gamer Cub recently seen me on Empire's SMP and suddenly I showed up on your Twitch suggestions. Well, it's a small world. Thank you for stopping by the stream, I appreciate it. This is the Minecraft survival guide. This is what I do when I'm not messing around on Empire's SMP. This is basically the reason that Empire's SMP didn't really go beyond episode 28 for me is because I got stuck into my 118 single-player world, where I tend to make the type of content that I prefer to make, I guess. The kind of tutorial stuff. Teaching people about Minecraft, exploring all the mechanics. That kind of stuff. So there's less of the storytelling stuff here and much more of the exploration of Minecraft as the game it is. Did I see Building with B-Dubs Season 3? I saw he had started it. I saw the thumbnail, but I have less time to watch Minecraft YouTube these days. Like, I'm still going to be watching Hermitcraft when they start Season 9, but I don't tend to casually watch too many other people right now. I feel like I'd be a better builder if I ended up watching more folks like B-Dubs, but then I'd also end up just stealing ideas, and I kind of enjoy the satisfaction of coming up with my own ideas without being too influenced by other people. I get torn between whether that's, you know, a better way to play the game, or if it would be smarter to just watch other people and try and find influence and cite sources and that kind of stuff. Is Survival Guide approaching the point of non-daily episodes? I mean, I don't know. Like, I'll be able to tell you when that happens, but as of right now, I have a bunch of stuff that I can probably do day to day. Like, it's when you get into the really big projects like Guardian farms and stuff that I really need to start slowing my roll in terms of episode output, and even then, if it's feasible to split it into multiple episodes, I can still get one out per day. It's just the editing time. I have a pretty decent editing workflow now, so... Like, I don't know what that point will be. I can't really predict stuff like that. How do I not get bored? It's easy. I just keep doing stuff. How long does it take for me to edit? I mean, it largely depends on the episode, but... if an episode takes less time to edit than it did to record, then that's usually a good thing. But I'd say about an hour to 90 minutes. Depending on if there's any more complex edits, like if there's text pop-ups and diagrams and various other things. But I don't tend to put too much of that into this series now, which has really helped, honestly, streamline the process for me. Like, I like the idea of doing a Minecraft survival guide that's more kind of graphically polished, but also that's not my forte, so I'd spend a lot more time rolling over my headphones cable. I'd spend a lot more time just kind of tinkering with graphic stuff than I would do actually making videos. Do a skeleton spawner to gain bone meal. Yeah, thanks. I don't know where one of those is. You also don't really need bone meal if you're dealing with trees that grow naturally like this. Like, I can just plant a bunch of this stuff, harvest the leaves. In a second or two, one of those dark oaks will have grown, and I didn't need to waste the bone meal. Do I record my voiceover with the script? No, almost entirely not. I pretty much free commentate all of the stuff that I make, with the exception of like the story segments on Empires where I had a script written out for, you know, the voiceover for the introduction with the map and everything, you know. But basically everything else I just chat over what I'm doing, and I have a loose idea for what I'm planning on doing. Curry Kid, thank you so much for the 2 months. Tanisha, thank you for the 100 bits. Appreciate that. Thank you. Do I say the intro each time? Yeah, I because you time it with all of the third person looking around and everything. Like, it'd be weird to copy paste that to me. Also gets me in the rhythm of making a video if it always starts with the same thing. Like, that's why people, I think, get into the kind of more catchphrasey side of making videos, where, like, they'll always start with the same intro. It's just, like, that gets you in the right mindset to make the rest of the video at that point. If you're always saying the same thing, then your brain switches gears at that point. And you're like, oh, okay, it's video time. You start, like, sitting more upright. You know, it's just those learned habits that really help it be a more easy thing to, like, switch in and out of. I keep coming to this barrel, and I'm, like, trying to figure out why. I think it's because I like to store sticks in here. Because they're just, like, they're tool handles, they're torches, they're whatever else. Like, it feels utility is what that barrel is for. Why don't I build something like a farm for creepers? I plan on doing that eventually, but basically every time I build a farm in this world, I need to do a YouTube episode about it explaining what I'm doing. And I'll do that eventually. But I also have a bit more of a roadmap for where I'm going with some of the more recent farm stuff. And to be honest, I don't want to switch to just flying around my world with Elytra all the time, because then every episode ends up looking the same. I'm trying to do a thing where some of this stuff feels a little bit different. So today I took my Elytra off. I said we're doing an episode underground because I'm recording, like, taking apart an Amethyst Geode and turning it into a farm for Amethyst shards. So I'm not going to wear my Elytra for this episode, and I've just kind of left them off for now, and it's one of those things I've just got to remember, hey, you don't have your Elytra on. It's also a good way to train yourself not to rely on Elytra constantly, because A, they break. Obviously, you got mending on them, so it's not a permanent thing, but so that you don't end up flying around so much that you forget, oh yeah, I need to mend these every now and again. And also because if you start other worlds, if you know, hop onto a server, you don't have all of that stuff. So many people get so used to Elytra they find themselves finishing their starter house, jumping off the roof, and then they take a ton of fall damage. And I'm like, you don't need to worry as much about that if you're not wearing Elytra constantly. It's an exercise in mindfulness, is what it is. Mighty Mitt with the 16 months. Happy to be able to catch you live every once in a while, loving the last videos. Hey, thank you. I'm glad I can provide a bit of entertainment, even if you're not able to catch the live streams all of the time. Do appreciate you stopping by. Whoever died from Elytra breaking? Yes, definitely. Like, there was one time in the Season 1 Survival Guide world, I died pretty far out. Like, I died when I was flying out over a Badlands biome about 6,000 blocks away from spawn. I had a portal nearby, and I had a backup set of Elytra, but it was like one of those moments where, like, yeah, my Elytra just broke in midair. I hadn't thought about refueling them for a while. Like, they had mending, they had unbreaking, they just ran out of durability one day, and I was like, oh wow, yeah, that can still happen, can't it? Bit of a wake-up call. Am I doing any more build tutorials like the one chunk stuff? Probably not like that format, because I really liked that format, but it took 3 days to make a video because I was designing stuff with the obvious, like, challenge of it fitting within a single chunk of terrain. And then I'd have to tear the entire thing down so that I could take screenshots of the build process, because most of the time I'd freestyle it in creative first, and then I'd go back and make the video after that. It's not like I could build it perfectly first time, but I wanted there to be less trial and error in the time-lapse sections of those videos. And then I have to render all of that in replay mode, and then I have to do more or less like a script for what I'm doing so that people can see it happening, and then editing all of that together and rendering it out and stuff. Like, it's a long workflow, it takes a while. And so I ended up not really pursuing that format much further than it needed to go. I got a couple of videos that were really successful out of that, so I pursued it for a while, but then making Let's Play tutorial crossover style videos just made a lot more sense to me in terms of time investment in versus video output. Do a video on full netherite armor. Here's a question, right? What would you say in a video about full netherite armor? Like, genuine question. Like, I'm not trying to, like, put chat on the spot and, like, call you out or whatever, but, like, I'm trying to think of what I could really do by focusing an entire video on the fact that I had full netherite armor. Like, there's not a whole lot I feel like I could really spin out of that as a concept. Because I feel like over the course of the series, we've built up to stuff like armor, because it's harder to say, like, okay, I'm going to get full netherite armor today when you've started with nothing. So it's a gradual upgrade process, right? I basically said everything in the netherite mining episode. That's the thing. The only thing that is different about netherite armor compared to diamond is it has 1 extra point of armor toughness, 1 extra point of knockback resistance, and it doesn't burn when you throw it in lava. That's basically it. Like, I don't find netherite that interesting. And so, quantitative benefit of netherite versus diamond. That's the kind of stuff that I don't like doing as much of on camera, because so much of it requires a lot of mathematical proof. And for a start, I'm bad at maths, so I'm not really the person to be doing that in the first place. Like, when I try and describe stuff mathematically, I get lost in my own, like, my own speech. Like, I don't know how to express a lot of that stuff. And maths was never my strong suit. I did okay with it at school, but it's never really been the kind of thing that I'm good at. And I don't think that kind of stuff is particularly entertaining for the average Minecraft viewer to watch. There are definitely some people who would really appreciate that kind of stuff. The same kind of people who, when they read the mathematical formulae for how damage is calculated on the Minecraft wiki, they go, oh yeah, I understand that, and that is useful information to me. Whereas I prefer to see everything through practical examples and not just, like, telling people that something works the way it works. And you could do a combination of both. But then I don't really feel like I have the foundation to talk about the mathematical side in the first place. And realistically, what people are going to see is me being hit by mobs and being like, hey, look, that did less damage because I was wearing netherite. And that's really it. Now, like, obviously, from my perspective, advancements are a really good way of driving YouTube content, because it's one relatively achievable, small task we can do. So what we'd probably end up doing is making an episode where we get the Cover Me in Debris advancement for getting a full suit of netherite armor, and then we'd also talk about lodestones. So we're getting more netherite. We're not covering the same ground we've already covered so much as we're setting ourselves a relatively small, achievable goal, and we're talking about that. But then you can't really provide that much information about netherite armor that I haven't already mentioned in the episode where I made these boots. Like, it's the same content. It's just repackaging it in a different format, and I don't know how much of that my audience is going to appreciate. It's not the kind of content I like to make, because then I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I feel like, you know, regardless of what the audience thinks of it, you get comments occasionally from people saying, like, oh, you've run out of ideas if you're, like, retreading some stuff that you've already talked about earlier in the series. I start to feel like I'm running out of ideas if I do 2 episodes about the same thing, like, regardless of what the audience ends up thinking about it. Will I do other bastions? Yeah, I think we'll probably do a comparison between 4 of those, because again, those are something that you can illustrate very visually. Like, if you compare a housing bastion and a treasure bastion, they're very different looking. Bridge bastion, same thing, right? Like, there's enough difference between them that I can say, here is how to identify each one, here is the loot you can expect to find in each one, here is the cool parts of the treasure bastion, the fact that it's got a magma cube spawner in it, stuff like that. Like, all that stuff speaks to me more as something that's interesting information about the game compared to here's how netherite armor is fractionally better than diamond armor. Twitch on phone censors Twitch on phone censors some wild stuff. Like, I forget what it was. I was in somebody's stream, and I don't hang out on Twitch Mobile very often because I don't like the chat delay and the screen is so small. Like, I like watching Twitch on my PC or my laptop, but every so often I'll have a stream on, like, on mobile when I'm just kind of, like, on the couch and I haven't got my laptop nearby or it's charging or something. And I forget what it was I was watching the other day, but Twitch, like, the chat censored something, and I was like, that is not... like, I can't even imagine the context in which that would need censorship. It's just... they've got some weird arbitrary stuff. And yes, I know it's part of settings, but I almost find it, like, funnier to leave it on and see what kind of wacky stuff it decides to rule out. It's like, nope, that's going to be a set of asterisks. I'm like, hello? Hilarious. When am I going to fight the Wither? I don't know yet. I haven't decided yet, really. I don't want to jump straight to, like, well, we fought one boss, so let's fight the other boss, because, you know, if we fight the Wither, we talk about beacons. If we talk about beacons, we're talking about stuff like branch mining and, I mean, strip mining with Haste 2 and regen and all of that kind of stuff. There's a whole variety of things we can do there, but my question is, when does that feel like it's necessary? You know what I mean? Like, in the context of a survival Let's Play, when is it the most logical time? In the context of a survival world, regardless of the Let's Play aspect, remove that from the equation. When is it the most logical time to get hold of a beacon? Other than, you know, immediately, just for the sake of having it so you don't have to worry about it later. Like, at what point is not having a beacon impeding our progress in some way? I would argue probably when we need to gather a ton of resources for a large stone build. And that's probably the only thing. Like, you no longer really need a beacon, or you no longer really have an advantage with a beacon if you are just mining for basic resources, because the resources no longer generate in the same place. You don't need a ton of the stuff that generates in the stone layers, because that's copper, that's iron, all of that stuff you can get in larger quantities elsewhere, either by farming it through iron farms or by getting your copper from a huge vein, which are pretty easy to find from what I can tell. And so haste beacons for stone mining got a pretty massive nerf by just the rearrangement of ore distribution, because most of the time when people are doing that, they're looking for getting all of the diamonds in an area, or they just want to acquire a lot of stone. And so I think the only thing to really, like, shake that up a bit is, yeah, are we going to make a slime farm, for example? Are we going to start hollowing out a large area to make some sort of underground farm? I think in a lot of those cases, you don't need to do that anymore because the caves are bigger. So you have a larger area that's open out, often even down to deep slate level to begin with. I think the main problem with beacons in this update is the fact that their radius is so limited, given the scope of the underground now. And so there's a curious sort of shift in the meta as far as beacon stuff goes. Oh yeah, it's probably going to censor strip mining as well. Yeah, it's weird, man. Like, I'm curious about when a beacon is really necessary anymore. And I think it's really just going to be, are we going to build a castle? Do we need enough cobblestone and stone that it warrants acquiring that amount of resources by haste mining them? Do we do it just as a novelty? Do we do it because we can, not because we need to? On the other hand, we might need that much cobblestone just for redstone components and stuff. But then you can also set up a stone farm and a TNT duplicator. It's the manual versus automated approach again. Maxenstein, thank you for the 14 months. Vioki, thank you for the 6. Isn't there something replacing redstone coming up? No. There are Skulk sensors coming up. I mean, technically they're in the game already, but they're not accessible in survival. I don't see them replacing redstone. Like, wireless redstone capability is one thing, which is very cool, very interesting, potentially very powerful. However, I don't see them replacing redstone entirely. Because for a start, the idea behind the Skulk sensor and its utility is really focused over spreading redstone signals over a wider area, whereas in contraptions which are more compact, I don't think the Skulk sensor is going to be that useful. That Enderman's here again. I feel like Skulk sensors aren't just going to replace redstone wire, because you also have the problem of, like, Skulk sensors being tripped by a variety of things. Comparators will help you detect what's tripping a Skulk sensor if you want to output a certain type of redstone signal, but you also have to occlude that with wool. There's so much other stuff going on. By the way, that is one of the reasons I built such a massive wool farm at this point, is because when 1.19 comes out, we'll need a lot of wool. So it's actually going to be really helpful to have built a wool farm very early in this series. Don't fully understand redstone anyway. Well, that's the thing. Like, observers helped me understand redstone a great deal. They made a lot of stuff that I was hoping to try and do in redstone much more accessible to me when I gave it a try. Because one of the hardest concepts in redstone is the ability to shorten or lengthen a redstone pulse and the variety of reactions that can have. Is why monostable circuits were such an important aspect of a bunch of redstone stuff before the invention of the observer. And you can still use them for a variety of things that you can't use observers for, but there's still just, like, a lot of stuff that can be bypassed when certain components get put in the game, you know? But I don't think Skulk sensors are really going to replace a lot of what we do with redstone right now. Not to mention the fact that they are fairly difficult to acquire. Like, you have to go to the Deep Dark, get hold of a Skulk catalyst, and then use that to start farming stuff, which in itself is going to be a significant technical challenge. Japanese YouTuber who had no outside information is Piropito. Just caught up their Let's Play. It's fantastic. Yeah, I've been meaning to check that out after it got mentioned in chat a while ago. Very interesting concept. Like, and frankly, pretty incredible. Especially as it gets... As a project like that gets more views, I'm sure they've had people trying to, like, sabotage it by, like, telling them more information. Like, they must have a really hard time not reading the comments. And I expect the comments are full of some very, very frustrated players. Replacing redstone is all you heard? I think the discussion really came up around Skulk sensors and how much utility they're going to have in redstone contraptions, and to my mind they're not going to replace traditional redstone, but they're going to be a very interesting thing to add to the Redstoner's toolkit. A developer said on Twitter they made changes based on them watching his series and he doesn't read comments to avoid spoilers. Yeah, I'm certain. But I feel like there are some people out there who do want to spoil everybody's fun, and so I wouldn't be surprised if he's had, like, various other attempts to contact him based on the fact that people want to educate him about Minecraft. Like, the Minecraft community can be a little bit pushy when it wants to be, you know? Especially when somebody is seen as doing something incorrectly. Just got a weird deja vu for some reason. Alright, Steph, you can do some tree chopping as well? We can encourage each other. Sharpen that axe. Let's get to work. Excited to see what all the Redstone folks do with the Skulk sensor. I'm excited to see what non-Redstone people are going to do with the Skulk sensor, because, I mean, if they want to use the Skulk sensor, then they potentially become Redstone people at that point. But I am curious to see how accessible it makes concepts that people who aren't part of the existing community of technical players and people who are more au fait with Redstone, like, what they end up using it for. Because I think there is certainly an attitude amongst some players of like, oh, this is a Redstone thing, I don't understand it. They dismiss it instantly. But if it's the kind of thing that you stumble upon through organic gameplay, you pick it up, you are signaled via various, like, in-game mechanics. Like, for example, the fact that we've seen in the Deep Dark Cities there are redstone lamps on pillars, and I presume those have Skulk sensors inside to signal to the player, okay, if you step near this thing, it turns on. There is some kind of, like, you know, reaction happening here. Maybe you should break that open and see what makes it go. People are going to get the idea that, okay, these can be used to trigger redstone components. What if I have this activate a piston that I walk next to or whatever? And then people start to experiment. Like, I entirely understand that Redstone folks are going to use this for a variety of things. I'm curious about what the average player is going to make of them. As a non-redstoner, I look at Skulk sensors as something I'd use in Enchanted Forest aesthetically. That's a cool idea. Like the idea that you're walking through the woods at night, there's no one else around and your phone is dead. Suddenly out of the corner of your eye you see him. Shia LaBeouf. Now, the idea that you're walking through a darkened, wooded area, maybe there's some, like, twisting vines and stuff around, like, you've got a little bit more of the fantasy aesthetic in mind, and then, because it hears you in the distance, a Skulk sensor just goes, and there's, like, that bioluminescence thing going on. You probably got a bit of Skulk worked into the scenery as well. Like, there's some really interesting possibilities. And again, a non-redstone use for something which is so painfully redstone. I think that's going to be really fascinating. The potential for dynamic environments is so exciting. Yeah, and the best thing is, you can get a blend of both worlds, right? The Skulk sensor notices you walking through this enchanted forest. It goes woo, and then maybe, like, up ahead on the path you have a dispenser underneath a block that dispenses lingering potions, and then a cloud of poisonous gas emerges. Like, there's potential for stuff like that to happen. I mean, for a world like mine, it doesn't really make a great deal of sense because I'm crafting aesthetic experiences for just one person and for myself. I'm not going to be surprised by that. But, like, the stuff that you have the potential to do on a multiplayer server or something is just going to be really interesting. I gotta say, that is one of the things I think maybe one of the only things that might draw me back into doing a series like Empire's SMP is I don't know who else they're planning on inviting to the group for the next season. There might be a couple of other people. They're all going to be fantastic builders, but the opportunity to baffle people with redstone would be quite fun. It's like the only thing I can think of. And again, like, I'm still not entirely certain if I want to return to Empires because of the whole roleplay aspect not really being the kind of content that I want to make. But I do like the idea of just, like, messing with people with redstone. extremely into the fast nether travel. I've always wanted to know more about it. In terms of like why nether portals let you travel more distance in the overworld, or in terms of like what your transport options are once you're in the nether. I'm still gonna do season 2. I don't know. Like I'm like 90% no right now on season 2 of Empires, I think, because mainly I want to focus all my efforts on Survival Guide, because this is the kind of content I like making. It doesn't involve the stuff that I'm less comfortable with, like the roleplay side of things. Like, when I started Empires, I feel like I had a different idea of what kind of content I wanted to make than everybody else ended up having. Like, I was much more interested in building a like a city that had like a history to it, and that was going to be like the lore of the series, not like we were all protagonists and everybody was like, you know, more actively involved in the roleplay side of things. Like I was more into like passive storytelling, I guess, than active storytelling. This is why everyone says set the pillager captain on fire, and I'm like, half the time they're out in the river. How do you get large amounts of azalea? Go to a lush cave, or get a moss block and bone meal it. You'll end up with tons of azalea. I remember hearing they want to do more of a D&D roleplay next season. I think D&D is more just like the inspiration for it. Like, I don't think they're going to be sticking to D&D archetypes and picking character classes and that kind of stuff. I don't know if there are some more kind of like RPG-ish data packs and stuff out there, but that's straying too heavily into modded, and I know Fwip's vision for the series was a lot more vanilla to begin with. I think really it's just sort of developing ideas that they can put into the server through like custom models and textures and stuff like that. And that's the problem with me. That's where my expertise falls apart, because I have made no effort to customize Minecraft in the past. Like, I don't really jive with the custom model side of things, mainly because I'm not very artistic myself. Like, I can build cool stuff in this game. This is probably one of the most artistic things I've ever done, is like playing Minecraft and building in Minecraft, but I don't have a great deal of artistic ability, and I don't know a great many people who do, and I don't have a great deal of vision for that side of things. So I don't tend to modify textures or anything. I don't tend to spend too much time fiddling with that side of things. I'm much more about what can I make out of the blocks that I already have. I'm just trying to work out if there is a place for an Empires series that doesn't involve the roleplay side of things, and frankly, with the way that it's going, I kind of doubt that there is. Otherwise, like, my point of view becomes very sterile, and I get a lot of comments asking me to do the stuff that I don't want to do. Vanilla series are my favorite. I connect more. Yeah, that's me. I'm entirely the same. I don't tend to watch a great deal of modded playthroughs. I find modded Minecraft kind of esoteric. Like, so much of modded Minecraft appeals to modded Minecraft players. And I get lost very quickly watching people do that stuff. I'm like, I don't know what any of this is, and learning takes so much time. No worries, Joranif. Enjoy the stream. Favorite ambient sound / music from Minecraft? Yours could be the deep dark theme shown in the live stream. I think my favorite music from just like the music that plays as you're traversing the world is probably some of the music from the Nether. Like, I really think Lena Rain's work on the Nether update soundtrack was phenomenal, but then I really love the Caves and Cliffs stuff as well, so. I found decidedly Neapolitan too esoteric. I really did. Yes. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I found, you know... I kind of found a rhythm with stuff like Sky Factory, because that gives you pretty clear objectives. Like, it gives you a book and basically tells you, do stuff in this order. And having a quest book really helps with mod pack stuff, but then it's where to go from there.
Well, that's just prime.
Safe Hadadine, thank you so much for that brand new Prime sub. Appreciate that very much. Whip said Wattles had the same perspective as me. He's really enjoying content creation through single player. Yeah, like, I've always been more interested in watching what one person is capable of doing, or what a community of people who are just focusing on the survival side of the game can do when one person's effort couldn't possibly be enough, you know? Like, thinking about Hermitcraft in particular, like what Hermitcraft can accomplish in the span of a year or two on a server, on a permanent world, everybody building different stuff, and that's really where it comes in for me, is not the storylines, is not the interactions, the mischief, the pranks and stuff like that. It's stuff like minigames. It's people crafting fun experiences for each other, and largely wholesome experiences. Like, I'm less concerned with the server-wide death game, prank war kind of side of things, and I much prefer when people decide to make, like, custom dungeons and things like that. Like, Decked Out was much more my thing, where it's like, this doesn't have to figure into, like, a storyline, it's not building up to anything. It's Tango basically making an entire game in Minecraft, and it just being phenomenal. And then people figuring out the meta for it and stuff like that, and people trying to, like, crack the game in a way. It's like, that stuff's cool. Like, it's really funny to me that Doc M had to take a step back from YouTube content production and focus on caring for his newborn kid and stuff during that, because I feel like Doc M would have absolutely destroyed Decked Out. Because he's competitive, he gets that way. He tried the randomizer, wheat seed planted and then broken gives me ancient debris. Nice. Literally farming ancient debris. Loved watching Etho play Decked Out. Yeah, no, that's kind of what I expected Doc to have done. Like, him and Etho would have been toe-to-toe for the grand prize, you know? Like, it would have been a huge thing for Doc. And, you know, like, Etho's into crafting, like, minigame kind of things. Like, he was trying to do something fairly similar with his, like, one-hit permadeath kind of... Not permadeath, you know what I mean? Like, the Celeste-style platformer that he was trying to build at his base in the jungle. I was really into that as a project. Like, I like stuff like that. Because, again, it's something that you can build that still, like, even though you know the course, it tests your own ability, instead of being the kind of thing where, like, you know all of the tricks and none of it surprises you. I feel like parkour is one of the few things that you can build for yourself in a single-player world and still find it a challenge to traverse. Whereas, like, if I built a minigame for myself here, I wouldn't have anybody to, like, compare results with, you know? I think Savannahs need an update. I mean, they were part of the biome vote at Minecraft Live in 2018, I want to say. The one where tigers won. During which I was voting for Savannahs, because Savannahs were going to get termites, ostriches, and I think baobab trees. I didn't care that much about the trees, and for all I know, they could have just been another variant on acacia trees, but, like, ostriches, man. I don't know what ostriches would do, but man, they would have been funny. Horses in the savannah should spawn as zebras instead. It's an option. Imagine zebras with, like, procedurally generated patterns. Kind of like the tropical fish approach. If Tango was to update Techtopia, was that something I might consider trying? No, because, like, a lot of the stuff in Minecraft that really appeals to me is the fact that the player is the only thing that can really make a significant difference to the world. And I feel like a lot of Techtopia is about having villagers kind of automate stuff for you. Have them walking around doing different professions. There's, like, lumberjack villagers and guards and stuff like that. I don't really find, like, the idea of having, like, a more complex village to micromanage all that interesting in a first-person game. That feels like the kind of thing that I'd want to be, like, a three-quarter top-down or isometric kind of resource management game. Like, there was a game called Settlers a while back that was kind of like that, but it's almost like Civilization or World of Warcraft, that kind of thing. What mobs were added to the tiger biome? Just foxes? Yeah, it was foxes, campfires, and sweet berry bushes were what got added to tiger biomes, which I'm entirely fine with, because I think foxes are great. They don't have that many uses, but I just like the mob in general. I think they're a good fit for Minecraft. You can make some pretty neat chicken farms with them, I guess. But campfires are just a wonderful invention. There's so much cool stuff you can do with campfires. For a start, their whole interaction with the bee side of the game is really great. But the fact that you have soul campfires added to the game as well, you can use them for an alternative for mob farms. You can cook food on them. You can use them for aesthetic reasons. The smoke particles are really good. You have two options for the smoke particles with the hay bale trick. Yeah, Arctic foxes were added at the same time. They were just like a variant of foxes. Just a reskin, so there's nothing much to hold them up on that front. Haven't looked at what campfires do? They do so much. Like, you can completely ignore them if you don't want to do stuff with bees, especially. And honestly, if you want to do stuff with bees, you can just get a Silk Touch pickaxe and some dispensers, and you can do the whole bee side of things without worrying about campfires at all. But, yeah, the fact that you can do so much else with campfires. Yeah, the fact that you can extinguish them and you can use them as, like, an outdoor kind of trellis, veranda-looking thing. Like, you can do so much. We need backpacks with new updates. Many new items also come. Inventory gets filled easily. Management becomes difficult. Get shulker boxes. Like, shulker boxes are essentially just backpacks that you have to put down on the ground. Like, that's giving you more inventory space is only going to work for so long, and then they add more inventory to the game, and your fresh new big inventory space gets filled up as well. Management is not going to be solved by additional inventory space. That's something that's going to be solved by additional quality of life features and a few other bits and pieces which aren't just as cut and dry as adding more storage space, otherwise they would have done that already. In my opinion, but, like, yeah, I see this argument all the time, and, like, just think about how quickly you run out of storage space in modded when there's, like, 1,500 more items. And modded has big old computer systems that you have to search to find the kind of stuff that you want. I just think, like, that's not gonna work for the feel of current Minecraft to begin with, but, like, you see how the storage stuff escalates in modded, and you're like, none of this is a solution for vanilla Minecraft. Are bundles still a thing? Bundles are in the code already. You can summon them using commands. You can spawn them in using commands. Like summon sounds like they're a mob or something. They're not. You can spawn them in using commands. You can add them with a data pack for the recipe. But I believe the main reason, this hasn't been confirmed officially anywhere as far as I know, unless one of the devs has mentioned it, but I think the main reason we don't have bundles in the game already is because they were difficult to add to the Bedrock control system, because a lot of people play on mobile devices, and what you had to do with a bundle was a bit more complex for people who use like a touchscreen to play Minecraft. So it wasn't really easy to implement them for Bedrock. That's my assumption. But yeah, like they're looking at changing some aspects of the GUI on Bedrock already. They've done that with the like world creation screen. They've done a few other bits and pieces, and I'm wondering if they're trying to like test out a few things on Bedrock that might lead to them either changing the way the control system works for touchscreen, or just making changes that will ultimately end up with bundles doing what they want to do. And I don't want to start like a witch hunt with Bedrock Edition, because again, that's just my assumption. It's not necessarily the case. So don't be like, Bedrock meant we didn't get something, because for a start, features like that should be available to everybody, and the fact that they don't work is a sign that they haven't been designed as well as they could have been. But like, maybe they've got some other stuff they want to improve about bundles alongside making them more accessible for Bedrock. I don't know. Enderman's still there. What are bundles? I can give you a quick demonstration. I'll just have to do it in a creative world. So we'll pop these in here, and I'll hop out. So, test worlds. This is where the magic happens. This is where I last took some screenshots of some phantoms. Okay, right. Time set day for the visuals. And give pixel riffs bundle. Okay, so these are bundles. They don't just have 2 inventory slots. First and foremost, let's throw down a bunch of. Well, just killed that. Let's throw a bunch of items on the ground. Miscellaneous items, right? So honey, slime, redstone. Let's throw some stuff that we might pick up as we're traveling around. We've got a few things like, oh, some sugarcane that we can replant at our base. We'll grab a bit of that. We'll grab some small drip leaf that we got from the Lush cave, and we'll put that away, and then we'll do the bundle command again. Right, we're in survival mode. No, we're not. We're in spectator mode. Now we're in survival mode. We pick up all of this stuff. Oh, what a load of junk. Like, taking up all of my inventory spaces. But there's like 1 of each item, or there's like, you know, you get wheat seeds, you get occasional crops, stuff like that. Stuff that you're probably just going to throw out of your inventory and let it despawn. But it would be really useful, because this is maybe some resources that you're bringing back from far away, and you don't want to throw that stuff out because you're planning on starting a farm or planting some flowers or whatever. So if you pick up a bundle and you right click on all of these items, the bundle is able to hold a bunch of different items in 1 inventory space, but with a maximum capacity of the size of a single stack. So it's 64 items maximum. You'll notice that, like, the diorite block in here, for example, ends up with, like, 48 of the 64 bundle spots being taken. So it's not like a shulker box where it's, like, you can just throw a ton of stuff in it. What it's really for is organization. The problem is, like, stuff like stackable items, for example, like ender pearls. Titan of West is suggesting ender pearls. They still have the same stack size as they would be if they were taking up a normal space in your inventory, right? So if I throw all of this stuff out, which you can do by right-clicking with your inventory open, so you can throw all of this stuff on the ground, pick it up again, decide what to put in your bundle and what not to put in there, right? Like, there's some stuff you can do there. You can also pick up items and right-click them to put them in the bundle. But again, this whole right-click, left-click thing is probably what makes it difficult to use with a touchscreen. If I give myself ender pearls, ender pearl 2, for example, right? We got 14 out of 64 in here right now. Let's put two more of the polished diorite in, like so that we end up with 16 items in there. If I add one ender pearl in there, 20 items, because one ender pearl is basically 4 items, considering they only stack to 16, right? Because 16 times 4 is 64. You end up with, like, one ender pearl effectively taking up the space of 4 items. And so 24 you end up getting out of that. You can take the stuff out of the bundle one at a time. You can put it around your inventory like this. Like, you can do some neat stuff with that. But if we end up putting all of this stuff in here, that ends up with 24 items. We cannot now then put, like... Let's try a sword of some kind. Golden sword. There we go. We cannot put a sword in here. If we empty out the bundle and we try and put a sword in here, that bundle can now only contain a sword. Because it's an unstackable item. Like, the bundle doesn't solve the problem of unstackables taking up space in your inventory. But here is the way I would imagine using bundles, and it will require me to not keep going into spectator mode. There we go. If I give myself, let's say... Where are the shulker boxes at? If I give myself a few shulker boxes here. Let's say I have 4 of them. And this is like my quartz shulker box. This is my, like, bees shulker box. This is the shulker box I keep all of my magenta items in. And this is the shulker box that I have, like, I don't know, warped stuff. So let's use that as an example. A cyan shulker box would have been better. Maybe we'll do, like, diamonds, like copper, all of that kind of stuff, right? So we have a bunch of items in here. We have so much copper. We'll use this as copper as the example, right? We got all of these copper blocks that I've been aging, and then we've got, like, 1 or 2 of the, like, slabs and stairs and things like that. Let's say the rest of this is all full, and, like, I've got these 2 spaces here. I could, in theory, fit 3 more stacks of items in here. But because I only have 1 of each of these stairs, they're not using the space very efficiently. So what I could do is have a bundle in each of these shulker boxes, and then I use the bundle to tidy up all of the items that I only have 1 or 2 of. They get condensed down into a single spot in the inventory. Suddenly I can carry 2 more stacks. The same goes for, like, the honeycomb. Like, say I've got a ton of honey blocks in here, a ton of honey bottles or, you know, blocks of honey, and then I have, like, a couple of honeycomb, maybe I'm bringing a campfire with me. Like, those items can go in the bundle. The bundle just goes in, like, one corner of your shulker box. It tidies up all of the other items that are just lying around in here, and you end up with a more efficient usage of your storage space. The same goes for, like, mob drops when you want to keep them at the beginning of the game. You end up with, like, 16 bones, a handful of string. Like, you could put more or less the entire contents of a desert temple loot chest, give or take the unstackable stuff like horse armor, into a bundle. And then you're taking the entire thing away with you instead of coming away with an inventory that's full of, like, sand and string and stuff just in loose quantities. Like, it's very good. I think the only problem with... Well, there's 2 problems with bundles. First of all, people wanted something that was going to be a solution to unstackable items, like enchanted books, like armor, all of that kind of stuff. And there isn't a solution for that with bundles. Those are a completely different issue. The other problem is that bundles require rabbit hide to craft in the recipe that they proposed as part of the experimental snapshots where bundles were initially available. And people don't like going out and hunting rabbits. Like, rabbits seem like one of the cuter mobs. There is no need to go hunting them right now. People aren't used to that as part of the workflow of acquiring resources in Minecraft. And rabbits are relatively scarce. They're only in a few biomes. They run away from you. They're not just going to sit there like cows and let you kill them for leather. And so people thought, hey, bundles seem inconvenient to get. So I'm going to just, like, assume that I wouldn't bother with them in the first place. And so that's kind of the issue here. Hi, Beardstone, we're talking about bundles, which means I'm on my high horse, as per usual. Like, I made a video about bundles a while ago, just kind of saying, like, I feel like people are misunderstanding what these are supposed to be for. People want early game shulker boxes. People want something that's just going to store a bunch of stuff in, and they hear, oh, a bundle can only have 64 items in, and they're like, why is this useful to me? It's useful because it tidies stuff up. It's like the equivalent of a desk tidy instead of having all of your pens and stuff in a drawer loose. You know, it's like the little tray that you put in your desk that you can organize stuff into. And you can have more than one bundle. So you can have a bundle that's just like, this is my food, these are the mob drops, this is whatever else. And then all of that stuff from your inventory can only take up like 3 inventory spaces instead of 20. It just makes sense. Yeah, early game exploring, they're good. I think late game bundles have a great deal of use for organizing shulker boxes. Like, I think they have a pretty decent, like, span of uses as far as the overall game goes. I think the main problem with people's, like, initial perceptions of bundles was that there weren't enough people trying them in survival. Like, not enough people ended up loading up a survival world. They just opened up creative mode. They gave themselves a bundle. They took a stack of items out of the creative inventory. They filled the bundle up instantly with that stack of items, and they went, well, that's useless. I've got a stack of items in there now. It does nothing. I'm like, yeah, because it's not for storing stacks of items. It's for storing one stack of up to 64 different items. You should be able to stack empty bundles to 16. I mean, maybe, yeah, like having the empty bundles be stackable in the same way that, like, glass bottles change, right? Like, you can't stack potions right now, but you can stack glass bottles. You can stack honey bottles, but you can't stack bottles of water. Like, I think all of that stuff is eventually going to be moved around once potions are stackable in the combat update. That's eventually going to happen, presumably. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious about where bundles are going to find their place in regular gameplay. Like, there's some servers out there who are already, like, data packing them in. Like, I'm pretty sure Legacy has bundles. It's the kind of thing that I initially asked for on Empires, because I thought it would be a neat way of exploring that, but they just didn't seem interested in doing it. Discovered yesterday you can stack Dragon's Breath, right? It's like, why? Why this but not the other thing? The reason really is that, like, stackable water bottles would mean you could stack potions. You could stack water bottles in a brewing stand, because there isn't... I mean, there might be a way of doing it, but it's like, if you can place... Like, inventory slots for anything basically work the same. So if you can stack glass bottles in your inventory, you can stack them in the brewing stand bottle slot, right? And so, in theory, you'd be able to brew 64 potions per slot of the brewing stand. So you, like, you know, what would that be? Like 192 potions at once from one set of ingredients, probably. Wasn't there an issue in which order you can access the bundle items? It followed the first in, last out order. Yeah, and there are a couple of ways around that I think would be quite interesting. Like, the way I like to use them is because, like, say, for example, you're running around gathering mob drops, you're killing skeletons, you've got all of your bones in the bundle at this point, but they're buried a few items deep. If you kill another skeleton, you pick up one of the bones it drops, you put it in the bundle, and then you open the bundle again, like it takes the bones out because that was the last item in. And so like there's differences in how people want that to behave, but I think there are interesting ways around that. There are some quite nifty uses for it, and it becomes something that feels kind of like not skill-based necessarily to use, but it feels a little bit more like you can get more out of them once you've got some experience with them. They're quite rewarding to play with after a while. You could stack in a brewing stand, yeah, and that's amazing. Well, yeah, but, like, immensely exploitable considering that right now you're only supposed to be able to make 3 potions at once. Making 192 potions at once is very unbalanced. It cheapens the cost of brewing by, like, you know, 189. It's like there's just too much going on there. They'd have to rework the entire potion brewing system to accommodate for stackable water bottles. But if they make the potions themselves stackable, then that's not going to worry. But that means you always end up with some kind of discrepancy between which liquids you can stack in your inventory and which you can't. Or if Minecraft just added backpacks like some mods have. Those are shulker boxes. It's just a shulker box you can access from your inventory instead, and, like, I don't... Shulker boxes are better, even, because guess what? That backpack that you have to put down to open, you can put it in a redstone thing that automatically unfills it. You can fill it up automatically, you can have it broken with a piston. Like, there's so much more cool stuff that you can do with shulker boxes. You want something you can open directly without opening. That also really complicates things for Bedrock players. Because, like, you open your inventory, how do you then open another sub-inventory from within that and control that using only a touchscreen? Like, it messes with how mobile Minecraft players, or players who need more accessible controls for other versions of Minecraft, can interact with the game. Like, it's all very well saying, like, we should have a backpack, but you've got to think of how that should be implemented. And on Java Edition, it's easy, because Java Edition players have, like, full keyboard and mouse setups most of the time. Let's throw some of these sticks out. We don't need those. Again, could have bundled them. Ender chest is the current early game solution? Yeah. But again, the Ender chest has its own set of conditions, like the fact that you have to pick it up with a Silk Touch pickaxe, otherwise it breaks back down into obsidian. Like, that is the reason they don't give you backpacks. Is because they want there to be a sense of challenge to the game. And also the Ender chest has other functionality that the backpacks wouldn't have. Like, you can access the same ender chest from anywhere you put down another ender chest. Like, that's got some interest behind it. It's got some fantasy mechanics. That stuff makes you think, wait, the Minecraft world is different from our own. It's also difficult. I think stuff like that is really interesting. Like the amount of things that they have to consider not adding for lore reasons.
Well, that's just prime.
Crash Override, thank you for the Prime sub. Jude the Gremlin, thank you for the Tier 1 earlier. Gandarian and Parishioner, thank you all for the resubs. How do you not get burnt out in Minecraft? What is getting you burnt out in Minecraft? Also, why do you feel like it is necessary for you to play Minecraft? I also find it weird, and this is maybe going a little bit too far in the meta commentary here, but I really find it interesting how YouTubers discussing Burnout has led casual players, not necessarily assuming anything about the person who's asking here, because you might be a content creator yourself, but like, I feel like casual players describe a feeling of dissatisfaction or boredom with Minecraft as being burnt out, and I'm like, that's a more specific thing. I find it really interesting that people have started to use terminology like that when it's like, this isn't your job, you know? Like, you don't need to worry about getting burnt out about Minecraft because it's a game that you play for fun, right? It's just an interesting mindset. If that's just like the language that it makes the most sense for you to understand it. Like, I'm not here to police the terminology or anything, but I sort of wonder how much of that is people taking cues from the people they watch on YouTube or Twitch. But honestly, the answer there is to consider what is feeling boring to you about Minecraft. And ask yourself how you can change that, you know? Are you finding yourself dissatisfied with the stuff that you are building? Does that mean you need to try a different build style? Does that mean you need to look up a couple of tutorials and see how other people have done it? Do you need to watch other Minecraft players who specialize in building to get a better idea of their stuff? But, you know, can you at least find somebody accessible and not somebody who's going to, like, blow you away with the stuff that they've built and make you feel bad that you can't build that way? Does Podzol make growing trees faster? No, absolutely not. No. No, it just appears around the base of spruce trees. The reason I'm growing it here is because this is the area that I always farm trees, and if I grow spruce over here, it just generates a lot of podzol. Tend to get halfway through a house, get bored, and start a new world. I can't keep a world for long. Then maybe building a house is not for you. Maybe you need to live a more nomadic life and go around exploring a world and just seeing what's out there. Take a bed with you. You'll never really have to worry about mobs unless you're underground. There's other ways to play Minecraft. Boz, who was in the chat earlier, I'm not sure if he's still hanging around. Boz spent a bunch of streams back when the 118 snapshots were in development, traveling eastward for 1 million blocks. Never once built a house, still had a fantastic time. Like, maybe the building a house side of things isn't what's interesting to you. Anchor Ham, thank you for the 18 months. Thanks for the insight and knowledge of the game that I grew to love from starting with your survival guide. Hey, you are welcome, and I'm very glad that you're still loving Minecraft. Try hardcore, you may just enjoy the early game. That's the thing, I don't think hardcore necessarily forces you into a position where you enjoy stuff more. You'll just have to play it over and over again. Instead of houses, I build biomes or environments. Yeah, like, I think there are certain conventions that we tend to follow because either we have expectations that the game demands that of us, or we watch enough other people do something that we assume we have to do stuff the same way. Like, I'm providing a tutorial that I try not to be prescriptive with, but I assume most people are going to want to build a house in Minecraft at some point, and so I build a starter house. But that doesn't take into consideration the idea that people may not want to build houses at all, and honestly, if you have a bed on you, you can survive nights out in the open. You don't have to build a shelter for yourself in the same way that it was basically mechanically necessary to do back when Minecraft started, because beds weren't really a thing. Beds didn't skip the night all of the time. Or rather, if you were out in the open, you could get attacked by mobs that would spawn near you because your bed wasn't anywhere in shelter, and they scrapped those mechanics quite quickly, but it was part of the game for a while. Like, if you want to just build an area with a bunch of chests so that you can store cool stuff that you've found and then just go looting structures and stuff, you can play that way. Built a medium-sized house, and a lot of it is still empty space. Yeah, and that's okay as well. Like, your house doesn't have to be, like, decorated to the nines. In fact, it often makes things look very busy. On the podcast, Joel Duggan often talks about the 70-30 rule of detailing anything, where 30% can be detail and 70% can be space for your eyes to rest. Basically, like, if you're building a structure, from the outside especially, it helps to have flat areas with low texture so that your eyes can take a bit of a break. I think even the Minecraft landscape is quite good at that. The way it generates hills and trees and that kind of stuff. There's detailed areas, and then there are areas where your eye can rest. But this is why building a house entirely out of glazed terracotta is a bad idea, friends. It's like, for a start, it's going to look like a prog rock album cover from the 70s. Alright, folks. Spoilers for tomorrow's episode. I'm going to try digging down here and see where I end up, because we should start hearing water in a second. Got a bit of copper ore on the way down. And then, huzzah! We end up at my amethyst farm. Look at that. I've made a very basic amethyst farm. There are only 13 nodes in this geode, which is kind of a shame. Because I've seen them with a lot more, obviously. But, yeah, we have a little water-based amethyst farm here. And what I want to do, if I can fill that top block in. Hello. There we go. What I want to do is, for a start, build like a ladder that gives us access to this area down here. But I also want to harvest some of these crystals, because I've got a ton of amethyst clusters that have started here. It looks complicated. Believe me, it is not. You flood the area where there are these blocks. You break these. They all get pushed up to the surface. They float down in that direction. They hit that wall. They go over the water streams into this channel. They end up in a hopper. They go in the chest. Like, it looks complicated because these are currently surrounded by amethyst crystals. I'm not farming this for shards right now. I'm just going to get the buds themselves, the buds and clusters. The most important thing is making sure you don't break the budding blocks themselves, which is kind of difficult, but this is something I'm considering getting like a mending stone pickaxe for, or something like that. Because that way you don't end up breaking this stuff straight away with like a powerful efficiency diamond or netherite pickaxe. It's probably a good argument for not having efficiency 5 on all of your tools. You can be careful, of course, but just being a little bit wary here. And of course I can just throw these out of my inventory if I start gathering up too many of them. Can also grab a couple from underneath by swimming around like this. See a conduit under this area in future. See, I was considering it, and yeah, we'll probably end up doing it for the water breathing aspect, but conduits also improve your mining speed, so it might be a lot easier to break the budding amethyst. Frankly, just having, like, Respiration 3 on a turtle helmet would be enough for this one. There's not that many budding amethyst blocks here, so I expect just, like, breaking all of these by hand would be possible with a few extra seconds of water breathing. I really wish it was possible to see more of the cluster's hitbox from on top of the block. These few are slightly easier to get to, though. I'm trying to figure out places that I could build platforms around the outside here where the clusters wouldn't get stuck underneath the platform, but I could look up and break some of these. That should be about all we need to gather. We've got all of those to go in. Could use a regen beacon to stop you from drowning, but then you still take the damage tick, like the field of view still changes. You still end up, like, maybe getting jolted a little bit and then end up breaking one of the budding amethysts. Potentially, like, it's not ideal to do things that way. Nearly a full stack of clusters, though. Pretty good. And it is down here. Did that end up going in the chest? Oh, it did. Yeah, it is down here that I wish to make a set of ladders, so I think we're actually going to have this come up here, I want to say. I want to have some sort of, like, entrance area here where I can come into this chamber, walk around a little bit without just, like, awkwardly jumping into the water from this side over here. Like, the technical aspect is there, I just need the aesthetic aspect now. Does Calcite spawn anywhere besides geodes? Yes, in the 1.18 update it was added to Stony Peaks mountain biomes. So if you find one of those around your world, there is a chance that a large vein of calcite will generate in there, which means you don't have to find geodes for it anymore. Which is good because geodes feel fairly limited. It's not renewable yet, and I'm not certain if it will be, especially if they don't add, like, slabs and stair variants and stuff for it. I feel like if it becomes more viable like that as a building block, people are going to demand a renewable source of calcite, which I think would be easy enough to do if you just combined amethyst shards and a couple of the existing decorative stone types, but and this we can just fill up with the stone. Stony Peaks are still pretty rare. Geodes are far more common. Yeah, but you can also see Stony Peaks from the surface, whereas for geodes you have to go caving. And I think there's probably overall more calcite to be found in the peaks because they are larger veins than just those individual blobs of a geode. But then again, you can find geodes pretty regularly. It's kind of up to you. Yes, you can get smooth basalt from smelting regular basalt, which means you can farm it because you can get basalt generating by combining soul sand, blue ice, and lava. Do I think a redstone block which skip every other redstone signal would be fitting for Minecraft? What do you mean? Skip every other redstone signal. Do you mean redstone that, like, doesn't connect side by side? Is that what you mean? Or what do you mean? I'm having trouble understanding that. With Amethyst making the noise it does, do you see it being used against the Warden in some fashion? I see anything that makes noise being used against the Warden. The caveat being that it has to be something that vibrates, not just something that makes sound. Like, the Warden is detecting vibrations. So is the Amethyst chiming causing a vibration? Potentially. Just gotta prove that somehow. Low-tech redstone clock. The first signal would not go through, but the next would. Oh, okay, so something that, like, if you pulse it multiple times, like, the first pulse doesn't get picked up, but the second one does, and it almost does, like, offbeats. I'm trying to think of a way you could do that already, because I'm pretty sure there are some ways you can do that. You can kind of do it in reverse. Like, you can have something turning on and off trigger an observer. So you can turn a redstone pulse into 2 redstone pulses pretty easily, but doing the opposite is potentially more difficult, more challenging. I'm certain there are ways of doing it already, though. Doing it in a single component, I'm trying to think of what the value of that would be. A redstone clock and a T flip-flop. I mean, I guess, yeah. But then you've got to have, like, 2 separate things just to get the third thing to be the result that you want. I don't know. There's various things you could do, I suppose. Haven't ended up growing any birch trees, but I don't really need to worry about that right now. We have some birch. And there's birch everywhere, of course. We're in a birch forest. If you short pulse a sticky piston, it spits out the block. That works as a pulse divider. Yeah, that could work. That could work too. Yeah, it's difficult for me because I have trouble discussing redstone theoretically. I feel like if I have a problem that I need to solve, and I know what the intended result is going to be, I know what the output is going to be, then I can puzzle through that stuff myself now. This doesn't have mending yet. We need to put mending on that. But, yeah, like, when it comes to just can you do this kind of, like, theoretical idea of what you could do with redstone, like, I can't always explain what I'm thinking particularly well, and I find it difficult understanding what other people are thinking. Alright, we're going to go and repair this axe over at the spider spawner, which is probably still one of the main XP farms I have. Let's see if we can hitch a ride on a dolphin. I really should get leads for this as well, just in case I can, like, keep a dolphin closer to shore, you know? And to be able to swim over here nice and easily. And then way! I do think this would have been slightly faster than doing a boat. 3-year-old says you have the perfect ocean. Well, thank you very much, 3-year-old. I appreciate that. Very proud of it. I was going to jump over that as though there was water on the other side. There was not. Definitely have to try and get your hands on with Redstone more. It's alright copying tutorials. I'd love to get a full understanding of it myself. It's been very rewarding for me, effectively having to do a lot of the Redstone stuff in my world if I wanted to gather resources. Like, when I was on a server, other people would build the iron farms, other people would make the automatic stuff. I feel like in Decidedly Vanilla Season 5, I had just about figured out how an auto smelter would work. And then from Survival Guide Season 1, like a couple of tutorials here and there, but really just spending the time puzzling through the mechanics myself led to some discoveries with Redstone that I'm just like very happy I made on my own, because that way I got to learn the mechanics instead of just hearing the mechanics. Whereas my Elytra, it's in a box right now. It's in the ender chest because I don't have a great deal of fireworks.
That's just prime.
And I haven't really been farming creepers yet. I haven't got a general mob farm. A general mob farm is up there in the list of priorities, but there's other things I want to discuss first. So I'm not just going to build a general mob farm and skip straight to, like, well, I can fly infinitely now. Like, I want the Elytra, even though we have it now, to feel like a finite resource for the moment. Until we have a little bit more stuff built up in the world. And I want to do a general mob farm before a creeper farm, because general mob farming is a concept that we need to get our heads around before we do specialized mob farming, I think. Survival Guide Season 2 and Impulse's Hardcore World have many similarities. In terms of, like, the projects we've done, the features we stumble into, how so? I haven't watched any of Impulse's Hardcore series, so I don't know. I caught one of the streams at some point, but he was just running around. I didn't see what his projects were at the time. I think he was just getting started. Survival Guide Season 1 always, genuinely gave this game a second wind for me. I always loved it, but it's how I discovered the technical side. It's really the same story I have. Like, Survival Guide Season 1 ended up changing my perspective on Minecraft, because suddenly I had to take on technical projects that I wouldn't have attempted before. Something to do with the pace of mine and impulses. Speaking of infinite Elytra use, do you think phantoms could use more functionality, since mending is infinitely better than using phantom membranes? I mean, I feel like phantoms don't necessarily need more functionality. I mean, phantom membrane is still used for slow falling potions, so it has more than one use. I think it's just how viable that use is for long-term survival gameplay. What are we doing today? We've been chopping wood for the most part. We're probably going to be wrapping up here in about 10 minutes. I did do a quick harvesting session at my new Amethyst Geode farm, which is the subject of tomorrow's video. If you need a quick fix on mending, the Elytra membrane is good. Yeah, I don't think I've ever really used it other than to demonstrate that it can be done. But, I mean, fair enough. I feel like just by fighting the phantoms in the first place, you gather enough XP that if your Elytra has mending, then you would at least be able to fly. It's not like a full quarter of your durability or whatever it would be, but still. We're both taking the time, enjoying the process, and not rushing the series. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I can see that being Impulse's pace now that they've just gone through Hermitcraft Season 9, and he was like... It felt like all of us were burning out because we were trying to get so much done in a short amount of time. Like, Impulse's was one of the Q&A episodes, Q&A streams, that I ended up watching after they'd finished Season 9. And he was like, let's talk about it. Did I crank up the difficulty from the start of the season? We are now on hard difficulty. We changed that when we were zombifying villagers, and I never really changed it back. I haven't locked it yet. At some point we will do a discussion on difficulty and explain the differences between the four. cats can also find membrane too. I guess. I just think overall XP is easier to find than phantoms. Season 8, yes, sorry, Season 8. Everyone's just talking about Season 9 now, so I'm just, like, already in that mindset. Next Clash of the Creators, when is that? Sunday, end of the month. February 28th, I guess? No, it's going to be before that. It's going to be I want to say 26th? It's the last Sunday of every month, anyway. But I don't know if there's going to be one this month. I can't remember. Hang on. Yeah, we don't have any information about it yet. I believe those events are going to be a little bit fewer in the upcoming little while, mainly because I think the folks who organize it, like Azuma and everybody, is going to be busy with Hermitcraft. The Monumenta team have their own things going on. I don't know if that's been like formally announced anywhere, but I don't think it's really a problem. Yeah, it's not a D&D day. D&D is this Sunday. So if there's a Clash of the Creators this month, it'll be the last Sunday of the month. Phantoms are basically a penalty for not sleeping, which isn't the worst state for them to be in. Yeah, I mean, I would much rather have them be optional mobs, effectively, than have them be a permanent problem. Have them be, like, a chance to spawn every however long. Almost done here. Been enjoying Vintage Beast Minecraft videos with Geode. Yeah, I saw that they'd been hanging out a bit more. Do phantoms spawn in the end? No, they considered them being part of the end initially, but then I think the problem with the end is that you can't sleep, so there's no alternative, and with the amount of bridging over the void that happens in the end, I cannot imagine anybody enjoying that. Like, it's not a challenge so much as it is an impediment. What's up, Tinker? Thank you for the 45 months. Let's see, if I build Final Fantasy in Minecraft, will that work? Bridging with phantoms would be a nightmare? Yes. Entirely so. I am all for them putting some kind of passive, maybe neutral mob flying out in the end void. Like, I think the sky in the end is the perfect place to put something. It just can't be something that's going to knock you off a bridge. They obviously have a lot of different directions they can go with that. Yeah, nether bridging with ghasts is frightening enough, but that can at least be resolved with, well, now, Elytra, I guess, might be your only option, but if you're bridging out there for the first time in the end, that'd be different. At least you can barter a fire resistance potion off a piglin, if you're bridging over the lava, but, like, yeah, I cannot imagine making the end more difficult to traverse would please anybody. If I rebuild the Final Fantasy VI box art in Minecraft, I'll stop reminding you for a year. I've seen these more as requests than reminders. I feel like the Final Fantasy alarm clock is ringing again. You want to go fishing in your spider farm? Yeah, a lot of the Minecraft Dungeons End Dimension stuff is really interesting. I am curious to see how much of that stuff would make it into the base game, though. FF6 is your favorite story-wise? FF6 is a masterpiece. Like, it's still fun to play now. And to be fair, I have been playing... I was playing a little bit of Final Fantasy 13 before I decided to buy Pokemon Legends. But, yeah, Pokemon has it right now. Is a Phantom Farm possible? Yes. The best way to build those is cobwebs. Phantoms basically slow to a crawl if they fly through cobwebs, so it's pretty easy to trap them that way. That's most of the way done. Yeah, cool. Love to see a crafting recipe for string. I mean, string seems so basic. I think Bedrock players can craft cobwebs into 9 string, so that could be something that would work in Java, but like, I don't see many people going that way. Is that it? Or is there more in there? Yeah, Pokemon Legends is so fun. I'm now at the point where I'm supposed to be doing the post-game, but I have taken a bit of a break from doing any kind of, like, storyline stuff to train up the other starter Pokemon. Like, I have a Samurott and a Typhlosion now, and I'm trying to complete their Pokédex entries, because, of course, like, if they're the other starters, like... you want to evolve them relatively quickly to see what their evolved forms are, but also you've got to fill in the Pokédex tasks that are part of the previous 2 Pokemon, and they're quite difficult to, like, get hold of. Alright, we're all good there. There's a little bit more in there which we could put on the Silk Touch pick, I guess. Yeah, that'll do. Alright, there's a couple more spiders still in the system who are probably just making their way over there, but we'll leave for now. This is another place that I want to set up a nether portal and make the whole thing feel a bit more put together, you know? Like, I like the cave feel for the moment, but I think I do owe it to the size of that project to actually do something aesthetically pleasing with it. And to avoid myself having to hop through all of the caves and whatever else to get here, because this route is a little bit tedious sometimes. Still trying to beat Cynthia and Brilliant Diamond. I've not played Brilliant Diamond, because I never really got into any of the middle games between Pokemon Blue and Pokemon Shield. Like, I haven't played any of the generations between 1 and 8, except for, like, very briefly owning a Nintendo DS and playing a little bit of, I think, Pearl? But yeah, I gather Cynthia's Garchomp is just, like, the wall for everybody playing that game. I caught an Alpha Garchomp in Legends Arceus, basically just by throwing a smoke bomb nearby and donking it on the head with some fruit. And it was like, yep, that's your Pokemon now. And I was like, really? It's like level 85. He's on my squad. Wonder why recipes are different between versions, like the Bedrock boat needing a shovel. They initially planned to put the shovel recipe into boats for Java Edition. And I think everybody just said, we're so used to building boats the other way that it's going to make me feel like I can't craft a boat. Like, that's the only excuse I can really imagine. It is very convenient only needing 5 planks to make a boat. And not having to worry about crafting a wooden shovel and the rest of it. But I'm also like, it's not that much different. When did I lose my first hardcore world? I mean, what do you mean first hardcore world? I've never really, like, aside from the hardcore survival guide, which I still didn't lose, like, I lived. And I just decided not to play in that world anymore because I didn't like not being able to take risks. Like, I haven't really played enough hardcore to have really lost a hardcore world. Like, the only time I died in hardcore in recent memory was on the Don't Die server, which was a multiplayer server that was only online for a month. Do I make wood tools or immediately skip to stone? I started this series by making a wooden pickaxe and then going, okay, stone tools though. But I'll sometimes make wood tools like a wooden hoe or something like that if I feel like I'm not going to use it all that much and I just have a bunch of wood in my inventory. But yeah, wooden tools really aren't that much worth using. Like, a wooden axe is barely faster than punching trees. I feel like the wooden tools mainly exist so that you can create adventure maps with them and kind of nerf players who would otherwise just go straight to, like, I've got iron now. Interesting dynamics. Looking good in the cactus farm still. Alright, folks, I'm going to wrap up here, I think, because it's been 3 hours. It's 6 o'clock. I need to do some editing, and there are some other lovely folks streaming on Twitch who we can all drop you off with. My partner is also streaming their Lord of the Rings copywork project right now. They're writing out the entirety of Lord of the Rings by hand. Their stream is not a family-friendly space, but it's a lovely one if you're interested in stopping by. That's over at twitch.tv/celerymin. We're going to raid Mr. Beardstone, who was in here earlier. He's a lovely dude. He's part of Legacy SMP and Truly Bedrock. He is currently doing some, what looks like Maze Runner style minigames on, I think, a minigame server that he has. So we'll drop you off with Beardstone. He's a lovely dude. You'll have a blast on his channel. Hope you all enjoyed the stream. Thank you for all the questions and the conversation. I always appreciate it. Thank you to the mods for keeping everybody in line. And thank you to everyone who showed some support on the stream. Thank you to Leon. Sorry I missed your Prime sub message earlier. And Tinker with the most recent, the tier 2. Folks, I'll be back with you guys on Thursday for another stream. We're probably going to have made a bit of progress in the survival guide. We might even be in a different location, depending on how we're doing with episode stuff. But tomorrow's episode is the Amethyst Farm episode. Don't miss it. It's going to be a blast. I hope you'll enjoy it. Until then, take care. My name's Pixarifs. I'll see you folks soon. Bye for now.